Planning Board to order. It's Tuesday, September 26, 2018. The recording and taping notification is required by law. The town may audio or video record this meeting, and we are. Any person intending to either audio or video record this open session is required to notify the chair. Having said that, the first item on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I just did hear from Alan. He will not be able to make it this evening.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yep, we're fine. First item on the agenda, new business, PB 2018-17. Richard Bosky, 2012 Revocable Trust, and Richard S. and Kathy S. Bosky, owners, care of William Kroll, Esquire, seek approval of a use special permit with waivers pursuant to the code of the town of Harwich, section 325-14Q, and Article 5, use regulations for one bedroom in a detached two-story residential accessory structure to be constructed. The property is located at 2 Lake and 10 Lake Shore Drive, map 110, parcel A2 and A4, respectively in the RR and W- zoning district. Councilor?
Evening, Mr. Chairman. Attorney William Kroll from Harwich Port. I have David Little from Ryder and Wilcox Engineering seated with me. I also have one of the trustees of the property, Richard Bosky, seated in the front row with the light blue shirt on. This is a petition for a detached residential accessory building with one bedroom. I submitted a copy of the assessor's map with the petition. There are 3 lots involved on Lakeshore Drive just before the Brewster line on Seymour's Pond. The principal dwelling, which has existed there for many years, straddles the lot line between lots 2 and 3. And the Bosky's Trust owns also Lot 4, which they will be annexing to lots 2 and 3. So Mr. Little will be preparing a perimeter plan, an 81L plan, or an 81X plan to combine all 3 lots into one lot. Because as you know, under the bylaw, the detached accessory residential building has to be on the same lot as the principal primary residence. So we will be submitting that and have no issue with that being a condition of any decision that the board makes. Mr. Little has handed out plans to you. The petitioner and Ryder and Wilcox have been in front of the Conservation Commission twice and received the approval of the Conservation Commission a week and a half ago, subject to the submission of a revised plan. Now, when you look at this plan, the revision that the Conservation Commission wanted was on the platform down by the water in front of the principal dwelling. That was the only revision they asked for. It has nothing to do with the petition in front of you tonight. There was one minor change, 2 minor changes to the plan as submitted as far as the detached residential building is concerned. If you look at that building, you'll see a setback that says 20.6. On the plan that was submitted with the petition, it was 21.0. So it's gone down by 4/10 of a foot, but it's still more than the 20-foot setback. So we're not asking for any variance there. It just diminished a little bit less than half of a foot. Also, on the plans that were submitted, there was a proposed overhang for the front entry. When you look at the large plan you have tonight, that's been removed. So that's not an issue. There was also a change at the request of the Conservation Commission from the deck that was on the front of, towards Seymour's Pond, on the front of the proposed building. The Conservation Commission wanted it actually enlarged, so that there would be no foot traffic between it and the wetland, and they reversed the order of the stairs, I believe, that show on the side of the dwelling there. So, other than those three minor changes to the plan that was submitted, the plan you have in front of you is the, let's call it the definitive plan that the Conservation Commission approved a week or so ago. They have not typed up their order of conditions, but I believe that they did issue order of conditions, Mr. Lewis?
Yes, we received approval pending receipt of this plan, which shows the proposed, a portion of the proposed platform in front of the Bosky's main dwelling to be removed. So that was, and so we've made that change. The revision date of 6/25 reflects the removal of the overhang on the proposed residential accessory building, and it reflects a portion of the existing platform to be removed, and the Conservation Commission approved the plan pending those two items. So
we're looking for a decision from this board this evening on that basis. The combination of the lots resulting in one large lot will have more than 40,000 square feet. None of the setbacks, other than the minor one I mentioned, all the other setbacks are still the same as on the plan that was submitted. They all meet the sideline setbacks, the street setbacks. There's no variances that are being requested from the Board of Appeals or that would trigger Board of Appeals review. It's a special permit review by this board in accordance with the table of uses, subparagraph 1B. An accessory building residential with bedrooms is permitted by special permit from this board in an RR district. This board's approved a similar petition that I had in front of you 2 times within the last year, and approved both times in the Schoolhouse Road parking lot area, the Vassal property down there. This board approved a detached residential structure, originally 2 stories with 2 bedrooms, and then we came back and modified that and reduced it to 1 story. And the board approved it both times. So I see this as a very similar proposal. As far as the special permit requirements are concerned, our argument is that the detached residential building would not constitute a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. There would be no substantial increase in noise, odors, fumes, traffic congestion, or the like. It's in an appropriate location for such a use. It would not create any nuisance, and there are adequate and appropriate facilities for the proposed use, and we would ask that the board grant the special permit this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlene?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those who don't know me, I'm Charlene Greenhalgh, the town planner. We did hear from other town boards and committees. The building department indicated that a building permit would be required. Police and fire had no comments. Conservation did indicate that it was before them on June 6th, continued to June 20th. The concerns that were raised at that time have now been met by the applicant. Health department, the septic system, only 1 bedroom is permitted for 10,000 square feet. Lots must be combined of sharing the septic system. Engineering just noted that there would need to be conservation review. Several of the comments that I had in my staff report dated June 12th have actually already been met. The first was that the front step or roof above the proposed new accessory roof above the proposed may need to comply with required setbacks. As Mr. Little explained, they've removed that overhang, so that is now in compliance. The lots would need to be combined. They've already indicated that, and that should be made a condition of approval. The site coverage percentage was not provided on the plan. This will need to be provided at the time of the building permit application. so I'm not as concerned about that. One thing I did want to point out, this may look like an accessory dwelling unit, however, the kitchen, as shown, does not contain a stove or an oven, and therefore does not qualify as a dwelling unit. As stated previously, Board of Health and Conservation Commission requirements will need to be met and should also be made a condition of approval. And number 6 suggested that the board wait for a revised plan. You have that plan. I'm comfortable with what has been submitted. So at this time, that's all I have to share with you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the plan you have in front of you does have site coverage calculation on it.
And we're good.
Okay. Members of the board, any questions? Joe?
Counselor, can you tell me, what's a dispersal soil absorption system?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Little on that one.
It's a leaching facility that is located very, very close to the surface of the ground, and it has a series of tubes that go back and forth. And what that does, it provides a greater separation to groundwater. In this area, groundwater is not that deep.
Because,
And-
I understand why, no.
So it's a little more, basically it's more spread out and it's closer to the surface.
And last one, Counselor, what's the total piece of property here?
Over 40,000 square feet.
About 41.
43,089 square
Thank you.
feet.
Okay. Any other questions? Jim?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question that isn't directly relevant, if I may proceed. It's
Jump
just-
right in.
It's just a question I had out of curiosity. I went up to take a look at this, and I didn't find any way to get onto Lake Shore Drive except through the town of Brewster. Is that correct? Or was I missing something?
Well, you have to, I think you may be correct.
Yeah, because I
Because
had
you
to
have to
go
go
up
down
it.
Blackberry,
Yeah.
you have to
The
go down.
homeowner is saying yes.
Right,
Yes.
which is in Brewster, and then I mean, the piece of property is in Harwich. My only, and this is more curiosity than substantive, have you ever had problems with the police or fire with regard to that?
I defer to Mr. Bosky on that.
No? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No other questions from the board? Any questions from the general public? There's no rush to the microphone. That being the case, to close?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. McFarland and Mr. Atkinson to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Move to approve the administrative waivers of any and all commercial or residential requirements of the bylaw that are not applicable to this petition.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Motion to adopt the following findings of fact. 1, the use is consistent with the zoning code and will not adversely affect the neighborhood. 2, the site is an appropriate location for such use. 3, the accessory structure will not contain a stove and therefore is not a kitchen and is not an accessory apartment as described in 325-2 word usage and definition dwelling single family with accessory apartment. 4, the proposed parking area will provide sufficient off-street parking which meets the minimum requirements of the town code, and as such, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mr. McFarland and it's seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Finally, a motion to approve with conditions the use special permit and waivers for PB 2018-17, Richard S. Bosky, 2012 Revocable Trust, and Richard S. and Kathy S. Bosky, pursuant to the Code of the Town of Howard, 325-14Q, and Article 5, use regulations for one bedroom in a detached two-story residential accessory structure to be constructed. The property is located at 2 and 10 Lakeshore Drive, map 110, parcel A2 and A4 respectively, in the R&R and WR zoning district. The approval is based on the fact that the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich with the above findings and following conditions. 1, the accessory structure is not an accessory apartment pursuant to 325-2 word usage and definitions, quote, dwelling single family with accessory apartment, unquote, and shall not contain a kitchen. 2, the lot shall be combined with an appropriate plan, Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81L, for example. 3, all Board of Health and Conservation Commission requirements shall be met. 4, required setbacks for all elements of the accessory structure shall be met. 5, the special permit decision shall be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And 6, any change to the plan shall be subject to further planning board review.
I'll second.
And moved by Mr. McFarland and seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Be carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
The next item on the agenda, we're taking out of order right now, Mr. Malone, for a specific reason I won't get into now. PB 2018-20, Peter and Marcia Malone owners seek approval of a use special permit with waivers pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich 325-14Q and Article 5 use regulations for 2 bedrooms in a detached 2-story residential accessory unit. The property is located at 27 C Street, map 27, parcel D9 in the RH-1 zoning district. Introduce yourself and let's get to work.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Roger O'Day. I'm an attorney with an office in Harwich Court. With me is Peter Malone. He, together with his wife Marcia, are the owners of the property. Marcia is unable to be here this evening, and we thank you for taking us out of order. I have the green card that will return to my client. Thank you. As set forth in the legal advertisement and in the application, the property in question, it's located at 27 C Street in Harwich Court. The property consists of the Malone's existing home, and to the rear of the home, as set forth on the plans that were submitted with the application, is the accessory structure in question. The accessory structure is already in existence. It was built in accordance, of course, with a building permit. We're before you this evening, just like the last application, seeking a special permit under bylaw section 325-14Q. The request is to have 2 bedrooms in the detached 2-story accessory structure. The Malones have owned the property since 1991. Their family is growing. First it was the kids, now it's the grandkids. They just need more room. The plan came along to add the accessory structure. The property is in an RH1 zone. Accessory structures are allowed uses there, but if you want to have bedrooms in the accessory structures, that requires a special permit that we're seeking from the board this evening. The request is that we be allowed to have 2 bedrooms on the 2nd floor of this accessory structure. The 1st floor, it will be just 1 large great room. The second floor has 2 rooms, and the request before you this evening is that they be allowed to be used as bedrooms. As far as the criteria set forth in the bylaw, we submit that this meets all the criteria. The use as developed will not have any adverse effect on the neighborhood. It's a very attractive structure. For those of you who have been over there, it's very nicely sited. The site is appropriate for the location, for the use and the structure. It fits the site. It meets all setback requirements. It meets all lot coverage requirements. And it's a residential use in a residential zone. There will be no nuisance or a serious hazard. There are adequate facilities in place for septic. The septic has already been upgraded to cover the bedrooms in the event this board sees fit to grant the relief requested. So everything has been met, I would submit, as required by the bylaw. We have received a copy of the staff report. We've gone through it. From my review, I see no adverse comments there, and the proposed conditions recommended in the staff comments are certainly agreeable to the applicant. So if there's any questions or any background information, Peter or I can either answer the questions or provide the information. Other than that, we would respectfully request that the special permit be granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlene?
Yes, thank you. With regard to comments from other departments, the building department indicated that a building permit would be required. Police and fire had no concerns. Conservation had no concerns. Health department, as already stated by Attorney O'Day, the septic system has already been designed and installed for this purpose. And engineering just asked if there was a site coverage factor. The building permit for the accessory structure was issued in January of this year. At that time, the approval was for the great room on the first floor and an exercise room on the second floor. Relative to the comments from engineering surveying, the lot coverage would have been checked at that time that the permit was issued, so it would have had to have complied at that point. Although no specific waivers have been requested by the applicant, it has become practice that waivers for these types of applications are standard. The filing requirements, unfortunately, at this time are designed for more of a commercial or major residential project and not for smaller special permit requests. At this time, it would appear that all requirements have been met.
Good. David, you had a question?
Yes, I noticed that on the rear elevation and the second floor, that the windows in the second floor are symmetrically located. And they are in different locations than are shown on the new plan.
I'm not sure if they may have shifted one in. I'm not sure.
You know, it's not something that would probably affect this, but you certainly would need to know that.
Oh,
When you
yeah,
Go
yeah.
try to build this and the windows are in the wrong place.
Yeah, no, I see where they are, and I don't think it's an obstacle for me, but I'll have to check that.
Were they built this way?
I believe they were both.
Well, they're in different locations on the floor plan.
Okay.
With the-
Yeah, I'll check that.
No,
Them now?
no, it's the other side.
Oh, I see,
down here.
I see,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, the three windows are in the back. This is the front. These are the little windows.
I'm not talking about these, I'm talking about.
Yeah, the back, the back.
You just, you might want to check that out.
Okay.
Any other questions? Joe?
Counselor, I just want to compliment your applicant for coming forward on a program like this. I can assure you, and you've been around a long time, there's an awful lot of auxiliary buildings like this with bedrooms in them that never came back through this board. And he was responsible enough to make his application, have the forms, and to me, that's a positive.
Well, Peter and his family have deep roots in the town. His business is on the Cape in Harwich. He's got a place in, part of it's in Brewster, part's in Chatham, but he lives in Harwich. Boy, that's where their heart is, their family
I just
is.
want to make that point for the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Are there any questions from the public? The mic is right there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just so, I put a sign-in sheet because I anticipated we might have a lot of people talking this evening. If people could sign in when they are speaking, so
On
that
this here?
I know, no, there's one up there and there's one here.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Ramler. I'm 31 C Street, the owner of the Keep Sea Grill right next door to the Malones. I just want to say we don't have any problem with the building or the bedrooms to be located next door. The reason I'm just saying a little something is because we are a business. We have been there for 17 years. The Malones have always lived next to a restaurant from when they bought their home. The restaurant's been there since the 50s. But I just want to make sure I know, having small children, they're building this and they have grandchildren now and they'd like a place for their grandchildren. But we were not notified of any of the building that was going on. I know they did not have to, as it was an accessory building, which I totally understand, but it would have been nice to have known that this was going to happen. But we just want to make sure that nothing changes, that it exists now, as far as with there being possibly children in the building. We do have a dumpster that is located short throw from the building. We have our food truck that parks at the restaurant. On Wednesday nights, it goes out for the music in the port and does come back a little bit later in the evening at like 9:30. And they're cleaning and bringing things back and forth from the truck into the restaurant, as far as storage and what have you. And the little hood is on while it's cooling off. And generally this hasn't been a problem because we have talked about the dumpster over the years, and I think we're at a good place on that. But their living space has been all in the front part of their lot, adjacent to the restaurant. So we're happy with it. Their kids are great. They have great dogs. Everybody loves watching what's going on. It's fun for our guests to see the liveliness next door. But we just want to make sure that we have a copacetic situation with having a new building that wasn't there before in the back. But I think that it should be passed. I just wanted to just put that on the record.
Jen, before you
Yes,
go,
sure.
Mr. Chairman, we have a set of plans here if you want to look at them. If you
No, I
haven't.
looked at them.
Okay.
Actually, I had to come up because we're up right after the Malones for the truck. So
know.
I happened to take a look at it. I think it's
Okay,
lovely.
as long as you've seen 'em.
It's a beautiful building. It's very in character with their home that's there now. They did a really nice job. And actually where they put it, now that it's leafed out, there's a really big tree. So hopefully that will block any potential noise that might bother them. And also I like the fact that they've put the bedrooms on the south side of the building, and there's the staircase on that side, so it shouldn't be a problem. But I just want to note it.
If they're anything like the Waltham Malones, they probably prefer arancini to cheeseburgers, so.
Joe Malone?
Well, they do like a good Mess-one salad with
Not
goat
Joe.
cheesecake and a chicken, so that's good.
Thank you.
All right.
I always go to good table in the North End because they thought I was associated with them. Never denied it.
Are there any other comments from the floor? Hearing none?
Move to close the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. McFarland and seconded by Mr. Atkinson to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Joe?
Motion to approve the administrative waivers of any and all commercial or residential requirements of the bylaw that are not applicable to this petition.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Motion to adopt the following findings of fact. The use is consistent with the zoning code and will not adversely affect the neighborhood. 2, the site is an appropriate location for such use. 3, the accessory structure will not contain a stove and therefore is not a kitchen and is not an accessory apartment as described in 325-2. Word usage and definitions, quote, dwelling, single family with accessory apartment, unquote. 4, the proposed parking area will provide sufficient off-street parking which meets the minimum requirements of the town code, and as such, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Moved by Mr. McFarland and Mr. Atkinson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Motion to approve with conditions the use special permit and waivers for PB 2018-20. Peter and Marcia Malone, owners, seek approval of a use special permit with waivers pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich 325-14Q and Article 5, use regulations for 2 bedrooms in a detached 2-story residential accessory structure. Property is located at 27 C Street, map 7, parcel D9, in the RH1 zoning district. The approval is based on the fact the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich with the above findings and following conditions. Move the page. 1, the accessory structure is not an accessory apartment pursuant to 325-2, word usage and definitions, quote, dwelling, single family with accessory apartment, and shall not contain a kitchen. 2, the special permit decision shall be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. 3, any change to the plan shall be subject to further planning board review.
Second.
Moved by Mr. McFarland and seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Malone.
Thank you.
Good luck.
We'll get a ticket. Next item on the agenda would be PB 2018-18, Cape Cod Regional Technical High School District Committee, care of David J.
McNevich.
McNevich, thank you. Professional engineer, seeks approval of a site plan review special permit with waivers pursuant to 325-55 for construction of a new regional technical high school, including building, reconfiguration of parking, athletic field, and other site improvements, and the use special permits pursuant to 325-51 for structures with the floor area greater than 7,500 square feet and 20 or more new parking spaces of the codes of Harwich. The property is located at 351 Pleasant Lake Avenue, map 82, parcel A1 in the R1 zoning district. Gentlemen?
Good evening. I'm David McNevich with Coastal Engineering Company.
Sorry I couldn't get your name right.
That's
David.
all right. It's not uncommon. With Josh Malonik from Warner Larson Landscape Architects and Carl Franceschi from DRA Architects. So, Charlene, do you have anything to display on here? Or? So you're all familiar with that the school is being replaced with a new school, and so we are before you this evening for a site plan review special permit and a use special permit because of the size of the building. We first met, I think, with representatives of the town just about a year ago when we were in a schematic design phase, and the project has developed, through that. We have obtained Conservation Commission approval for the limited amount of work in 2 locations that are within conservation jurisdiction. So we've obtained Conservation Commission approval for that. And we've also received approval from the Board of Health because we have a septic system that is more than 2,000 gallons per day. It's not a new use, unlike many other projects. So there's already an existing septic system on the property that was constructed when the school was constructed. And of course, now it will be a current code system for the school. I don't know if the images that on that thumb drive that I gave you might be better. It might be. We can try.
I'll try. It may take a week to get to them.
Let's hope it's quicker.
Looks to me like you want the L500s. Am I right? I think you want the L500 series, don't you, of plans?
Is that still your set, Charlie? Is that
Nope,
still-
this is you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the L series are the landscape keeping plans. I believe the 500 would be the planting.
You tell me which one you want.
Excuse me.
Well, we could start with,
This is L.
And this one goes a lot faster than the other one.
okay, that goes faster?
This goes way faster,
Okay,
yeah.
good. So the project, the new building is proposed to be situated along the east property line, sort of backed up to the hill where the water tower is located just to the east of that? Just the red button?
Yeah, just the red button. Yes.
So the rear property line is here, the water tower is about in this location, the existing school building is here, and so the new building would be constructed to the east of the existing school. I'm just trying to give a brief overview here. This is an area that's already with a bus parking lot here that'll be reconfigured, and then there'll be some new fields here, and I'll let Josh speak more to that. But the work starting at Pleasant Lake Ave, Route 124, is just a little work that's being proposed at the entrance here. The median, the island median is going to be reconfigured.
Do you want to zoom in? There's the zoom in one,
Sure.
which is
That
at
one.
the bottom.
Yeah, and it's just, so there's a little bit of work that's just within the buffer zone of the Cranberry Bog across the way. It's really just very limited paving in that location. And then there's a sheet that would show the property just to the south here, showing.
It's the other way.
Back up here.
Yeah. Well, it's here, it comes down, and so the entrance
Oops, sorry.
The entrance comes in and then makes the turn here. There's a wetland down in here, and we just have a little bit of work in the buffer zone here. I'm sorry, that's outside. It's up by the irrigation pond by the baseball field is the other work that Conservation Commission approved. Right there. Here's the irrigation pond, the baseball field is right here now. And then there's a wind turbine right in this location, and there's a footpath, a stone dust footpath that's proposed. Very little bit of work within the 100-foot buffer zone. But other than that, all work on the site is not closer than 100 feet to the wetland, and that conservation has approved that. I think I would turn it over to Josh, maybe to just give you an overview of the site layout and what they've done in the project.
I think if you go back out to the L000, that's a good overall sheet. So as David was mentioning, off of Pleasant Lake, we're doing a little work down here just to really facilitate truck turning and allowing trucks coming from the north to the south to turn into the site. The existing football field down here is going to remain as is. We're not touching that. A little bit of reconfiguring this entry drive. As you drive in the road, as it is existing, everybody kind of knows it kind of curves up here, and we're starting the new curvature a little bit past there's an existing house right down here. So you'll enter the site up through here. We got a main parking lot right here for students, and then another parking lot kind of off here for either students or staff. Bus queuing will happen on this long arc, and we'll be able to fill all the buses that drop and pick up students from the school. And then any parents or anybody that needs to have a car pickup, we have a queue length right through here. We have a nice entry spine that has some great planting in here, so as people come in and out of cars, they can get on this pathway and enter the school. This is the main kind of entry focal plaza area. We have another parking lot up here, and then as David mentioned, we're reconfiguring the bus parking pretty much on the existing bus parking lot that's at the school right now. Site circulation to get to the back side of the school where all the shops are, HVAC, automotive, marine, horticulture, all the shops are in the back. Trucks and deliveries will come in, they'll come around here and access the back here. So the site circulation in the back is a counterclockwise rotation. There'd be a little bit of two-way traffic here, and this is mainly just for bus drivers, so they don't have to go all the way around the back just to park their car and get in the buses. They'll be able to kind of go right through here, but for the most part, we have a counterclockwise site circulation. Did extensive planting all around these parking lots, and we have really big, generous planting islands where we were able to incorporate some stormwater management, rain gardens, and help with the mitigation of stormwater. We've tried to play with mounds and landforms in here to help to pick up on that kind of Cape Cod sand dune environment that we have down here. So as you're coming up here, this parking lot's a little bit higher than this intersection, but we have some nice mounds coming up here, which will help screen any of the parking. So as you drive in, you'll see the track that's right here. There's the soccer field and baseball field, the football field down here. So as you're driving in, there's a lot of greenery coming in. So we're trying to hide the parking lot and keep that at a minimum. We have 2 courtyards. We have a northern courtyard here with some more shade-tolerant plants, a little outdoor amphitheater, seating areas down here. And on the south side, we have the cafeteria, school cafeteria is right here with a great big glass facade wall that looks out to the south. So this is going to be a really nice microclimate in the wintertime, in the cooler months. In the south, you get great solar exposure, so we have a lot of seating outside. We have some overhead canopy lights, so it'll be a great gathering space here. On the back side, this kind of shaded area, this area is a green roof. It's on top of the shops, which are below. So this will be a nice sedum mat, vegetated roof. Helps with insulation and kind of the HVAC cooling of the shops, and also provides a nice visual barrier, a little bit of stormwater management with that too. As David mentioned, all the ball fields and the athletic components on the lower area here are untouched. We're not adjusting anything that's kind of down. There's a large slope right here that leads you down to the ball fields. We are proposing a new varsity softball field here and a large soccer field. I believe it's a 360 by 210. So it's a very large multi-purpose natural grass soccer field. Football fields remaining as is. And then underneath the leach fields of the septic system, this will be kind of the practice area for soccer. So when the guys are pushing sleds and stuff, they can kind of beat up that area, so to speak. I want to go to the planting plan, the L500 series. I'll walk you guys through a little bit of the planting. So as you can see here, we've tried to really plant up a lot of these islands, and where we can direct stormwater, we're sheet flowing a lot of the stormwater in these parking lots into bioretention and rain gardens, swales here. The soils on site are very, very sandy. They infiltrate water very well, so we're taking advantage of that existing site condition that we have. But we really try to buffer all the plants here. There is a horticultural program at the school, so the plant list is very extensive. We're working with the school because they use the existing plants on site for teaching and identification purposes. So throughout the site, we have a very robust planting plan. On the outsides of the property, we have a lot of hatching here. So these are more of a native seed mix, restoration mix that has different grasses, wildflowers, might be some shrub seeds that are in here. So we're trying to reforest. This is going to be a big cut slope. As we've kind of pushed this building towards the east, there's a large kind of 2-to-1, 3-to-1 cut slope right here. So we're going to aggressively plant and seed that and reforest that over time. So basically on the perimeter of the site, we have a more of a native kind of natural seed mix to help bridge that gap from the interior kind of more ornamental planting, and then the existing kind of forested area on the outside. We're going to try to mesh that with a more of a native natural restoration seed mix. I think that's about it through the planting.
Yeah, if,
Do you want the building? In case people want to see what it looks like.
sure, that goes back to the beginning. I believe the architect will go for us, right? That's the elevations. It's a little tough to see there, but that's the 3D views of what the building looks like. I don't know, Carl, if you want to say anything, or?
Sure.
briefly, it's
You
basically.
have to go to a microphone either up there or at the table.
Okay. Good question.
Yep.
And if you'd write your name down, Carl, that'd be great.
Sorry?
If you'd write your name down on the
Sure.
pad, just so I
Um,
get your spelling right.
It's basically a two-story building, but it also follows the natural topography of the land there, that it's situated on what's now a parking lot. And as David pointed out, there's a main entrance for security reasons. Most everyone's directed to that, whether you're a visitor or a student, arriving by bus, arriving by car. It's all directed to the main entrance there, where there is a main stair tower. It's kind of the image of the school as you come up the driveway. It's located immediately adjacent to the administration area. There's a fair amount of glass at that part of the site for both the image and the supervision looking out. You can see it's mainly a flat roof building, a low slope building, but there are a few areas that we raise the roof in order to get some clear story lighting into the center of the building. Those are those areas that have popped up. Some of them are sloped. Again, it's somewhat, when you look at the silhouette of the building, it's somewhat reminiscent of sand dunes in profile in that regard. And then the area that's over the shops, because they're 1 story high, will be a vegetated roof as well, so it helps with stormwater, and it also gives something for these classrooms and shops along here to look out on the second floor. And basically the building is organized in these clusters, so that there are shops on the back side, but there are classrooms right across the hallway on the front side, on each side, the north side and south side, and they stack on 2 stories. So there's basically 4 clusters of classrooms and shops throughout the building, and then the core facilities are right down the middle here. So this is the gymnasium, this is the cafeteria on the first floor, and the library media center on the second floor, and there's one small kind of presentation room on the second floor here. So those core functions are all in the middle of the school. Also, as you might know, the school does service the public. People can have lunch there, people can have their hair done in the salon. So those couple of shops are located right up front, right off the entrance, right adjacent to visitor parking. So we try to, again, for both convenience and accessibility, locate those facilities right by the front entrance. So visitors would get checked in and then immediately could cross the hall into the restaurant, which is up front, or the salon, which is just down the hall, and that same main lobby serves as the lobby for the gymnasium too. So it's a pretty convenient layout, accessible to the public as well. The materials on the building, I know it's hard to see on this slide. A lot of the materials around the school consist of precast concrete panels, which are actually fabricated off-site and trucked here. And they're not just the facade of the building, they're actually the entire wall. So they're a sandwich panel, sort of like an Oreo cookie with concrete, insulation, and concrete all in one panel. And they're 2 stories tall, so they can make up this whole building on the back side. And they have windows built into them and so forth. And so that's the finish, both inside the building and the classroom side. We don't have to spend more money to fur out the wall and add drywall. The concrete is the finish there, it gets painted. And up front, where there's a little bit more glass, those same concrete panels are used in a horizontal fashion. So at the floor lines, at the roof lines, and you might be able to see that in some of these elevations here. Yeah, that's a good one. It's a little bit hard to see, but here those same concrete panels are used horizontally. So effectively there are 2 types of panels on the outside. And there's a few areas of large-scale concrete block, what's called ground face concrete block in a few areas, but the predominant materials are strip windows, curtain wall, glass, concrete panels, and then some concrete block around the gym areas. So those are the primary materials, and they're in sort of a sand colored palette too, in terms of the color of the materials. Again, to
we think blend in and help just sort of with the feel of the building, be appropriate for its location here on the Cape. I think that's about the building, but happy to answer questions too.
So the one thing I would address is this building and parking lots comply with all of the requirements of the zoning bylaw in terms of setbacks, coverages, those sorts of things. The one item that we were requesting a waiver from was the parking requirements. The zoning bylaw would require 409 parking spaces based on the requirement that you have to take the parking requirement for your largest assembly use. In this case, it's the gymnasium, 850, seating for 850 people, plus one parking space for every staff member. And so combined, that's 409 parking spaces. We would suggest, and we're proposing 392 parking spaces of the 409. We're suggesting that the relief can be granted because we don't think that when an event is going on in the gymnasium where that's at full occupancy, the school will be in session where all of the staff members are there, or if it's a school time event, there'll be staff members in the gymnasium area, so it would be double counting the parking spaces. We don't feel that the full 409 is required. Again, we're providing 392 of that 409.
More than they have today.
So, and it's more parking spaces than exist there now, so. I guess I would leave it at that and open it up to any questions you may have.
Okay. We'll start out, Charlene.
Thank you. Just a couple things. One, just for everyone's education, I guess. Educational corporations fall under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 3, which is also known as the Dover Amendment. And under this provision, educational uses are exempt from zoning, provided, however, that such land or structures may be subject to reasonable regulations concerning the bulk and height of structures, yard sizes, lot areas, setbacks, open space parking, and building coverage requirements. Just wanted the board to know that and the public to know that. David has reviewed one of the requested waivers, which is the parking. The other is a request to not have to comply with the municipal lien certificate requirement. They're tax exempt, they don't pay taxes, so there is nothing. Regarding other departments, engineering did not respond at all. We were hoping to get something from them, but they did not. Police has no issue. Conservation, it has been through conservation, so that's not a problem. And the Board of Health met on May 14th, 2018 for a hearing to consider an application for environmental impact review in accordance with the Harwich Board of Health Regulation 1.211. After considerable review and discussion, it was decision of the Board of Health to approve the proposal as submitted. Certificate of conformance from the Board of Health dated May 22nd, 2018 will need to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and I did include that in the Planning Board staff report. The total land area of the parcel is 2,938,652 square feet, of which 67,760 is wetland. The existing Cape Cod Tech building has a gross floor area of 213,920 square feet. And the new building will have, only slightly larger in the grand scheme of things, 221,880 gross square feet. 377 parking spaces currently exist on the site, and the new layout would provide for 392 spaces. As Dave mentioned, the applicant's team has met with town staff on numerous occasions to seek staff input from regulatory and design standpoint, and we are appreciative of that. With regard to the reasonable regulations outlined in Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 1, I offer the following: bulk and height of structure. The height will fall under the review and approval of the building commissioner. As far as bulk, it is not within the code to regulate bulk except for coverage requirements. B, yard size and lot area has been exceeded for this zoning district, where the minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet. C, setbacks, all required setbacks have been met. D, Open space and building coverage requirements, maximum allowable building coverage 15%. The proposal is actually only at 4.5%, and the maximum allowable site coverage is 30%, and the proposal here is at 20.8%. Parking requirements, the applicant has requested a waiver of the required parking, number of parking spaces that would have overall required 409 spaces. The applicant has requested 392. In my opinion, this does appear to be a reasonable request. Abutters were notified via certified mail on June 5th. Administrative and filing requirements have been met. Staff does recommend approval of all waivers requested, and standard conditions of recommendations are recommended and are noted in the draft decision. And that's all I have.
That's enough. First, any questions from members of the board? Mr. McFarland? Oh.
Okay.
No, you go ahead.
Can you tell me if, and I know you're not in the education business, you're in the building business, is this going to change the total number of students?
No, it's not anticipated to significantly change the enrollment. The enrollment does fluctuate a little bit from year to year, but
Sure.
This is basically similar to the current enrollment.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Jim?
This is just out of curiosity. I thought I heard somewhere there's a windmill, right, a turbine on the property, and there's a lot of surface area in that roof, and I'm wondering if any consideration was given to solar panels or.
There is actually, the turbine though was pre-existing, that's actually being removed. It wasn't functioning, it stood there previously, but there's definitely consideration for solar panels on a significant part of the roof. This building will be what's known as a green building. It will meet LEED standards, and not just LEED certified, but LEED silver. So that actually not only saves energy and that sort of thing, but it actually gets the district additional reimbursement from the state.
That's right.
In that regard. So we're definitely taking advantage of that.
Any thought to revisiting or revising the turbine, or no?
I think, I can't speak specifically, but I believe we did investigate wind speeds here as to whether it would make sense. And it was somewhat borderline here. That may have been why the previous one was disconnected, I'm not positive. But the school does, sort of, being a vocational school, do some things on its own, and they may pursue a rooftop just as a demonstration kind of situation.
You've got something to add, Chris?
Yeah, I do. Christopher Clark, Town Administrator. I'm also on the School Building Committee for the tech project. One of the things, it was asked pretty early on about solar panels. We have to really follow the guidelines of MSBA, the state regulator, and they do not provide for that. That would have to be something that would be done later at the town or the school's expense.
So are you supportive of that idea or not?
I think that the school would be seriously willing to consider it, but just under MSBA, we're trying to have the project come in at a certain funding level, and that's beyond the current funding.
Thank you.
Yes.
One of your abutters has a wind turbine, and my knowledge is that that's not Mr. Maloney. And that you might want to talk to him a little bit about the problems he had with trying to make that thing go.
Yeah.
Jim?
On your current facility, you have 377 parking spaces. Have you ever had a situation where all of those were occupied and had any type of overflow of parking?
Not to my knowledge. Certainly on a day-to-day basis, it's nowhere near full.
Right. But like with special events?
Yeah.
Like a football game or something?
Yeah, the way the layout is planned, there are several long driveways in addition to the 92 striped parking spaces. Right. There's opportunity for a significant amount of parallel parking along one side of these long driveways.
And that's not counted in your 300?
And it's not counted.
Okay, so that would be your contingency plan if you ever did, because I think one of the concerns that we would have is that we wouldn't want the parking to flow out onto Route 124.
Right, certainly not.
And this is significantly set back. That's a
Yeah,
lengthy,
no doubt.
lengthy driveway.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Are there any questions from the general public?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Vote to approve the waivers as required based on the fact that the waivers do not substantially derogate from the purpose and intent of this bylaw. One, filing a municipal lien certificate as this is a school that does not pay taxes. Two, a waiver from 325-39A off-street parking to allow 392 parking spaces, excuse me, where 409 would be required.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Move to adopt the following findings of fact. One, the site is currently being used for the existing Cape Cod Regional Technical High School. Two, the use is governed by the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Paragraph 3. Three, the existing facility will be demolished following the construction of the new facility. Four, the parking as proposed is adequate for the purposes of and use of this property. Five, the existing entrance and driveway provide for adequate access and meet the minimum standard of the zoning code. Six, the plan provides for efficient and safe disposal of surface water. Seven, the use is existing and is consistent with the zoning code. 8, adequate and appropriate signage exists. 9, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians.
Second?
Been moved by Mr. McFarland and seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried unanimously.
Finally, to approve with conditions, case number PB 2018-18, Cape Cod Regional Technical High School District Committee, care of David J. Mitchowitz, P.E., for approval of a site plan review special permit with waivers pursuant to paragraph 325-55 for construction of a new regional technical high school, including buildings, reconfiguration of parking, athletic fields, and other site improvements, and use special permits pursuant to paragraph 325-51 for structures with floor area greater than 7,500 square feet and 20 or more new parking spaces of the Code of the Town of Harwich for property located at 351 Pleasant Lake Avenue, map 82, parcel A1 in the RL zoning district. The decision is based on the aforementioned findings of fact and the fact that the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich and with the following conditions imposed relative to the site plan review. 1, lighting and signage shall conform to the zoning code. 2, the site plan special permit decision shall be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. 3, any changes to the plan shall be subject to further planning board review.
Second?
May I ask a question on condition number 3? And I didn't get a chance to ask this question of Charlene, but any changes means even minor changes would have to come back to planning board. Could that would you consider that condition read that any changes would need to be reviewed with the planner and then possibly come back if deemed necessary? I mean, if a slight shift in a sidewalk location perhaps, any changes means any change.
I think
Go ahead.
that's de minimis.
Okay.
Okay, I really do. I mean, if you're gonna not build one of those buildings or
Oh, yeah, no,
that
yeah,
kind
right.
of thing, then I think you have to come back.
Okay.
If you're gonna have to straighten out, I meant to be complimentary to the planting. That's amazing what you're proposing, and I think that's wonderful. That's often lost on public buildings, in my judgment, and you seem to have addressed it. So I think
All right,
What
as
you
long as
talk
we
about is de
understand
minimis. If it had to be major, it'd have to come back to us.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough.
generally.
I suppose if it's gonna exceed the cost of Newton High School, you better come back. Okay. So we'll leave that, that's fine the way it is,
Yep.
okay? It's been moved and seconded by Mr. McFarland and seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Is there any discussion on the matter? Hearing no discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Bonne chance.
Good luck.
Okay, the next item on the agenda would be PB 2018-21. Come right up. Main Street HP LLC is owner of the C Street Productions LLC, DBA Salt Block Food Truck. Douglas Ramla as applicant seeks approval for use regulation special permit restaurant fast food takeout pursuant to the code of the town of Harwich, section 325-13, paragraph 432A, to operate a mobile food vending operation for the property located at 575 Route 28, map 14, parcel B15 in the CV district. Go right ahead.
All right, we're here again. Last summer, we had a special use permit to operate our business, the Salt Block Food Truck at 557 Route 28 in Harwich Port. Obviously, with the construction going on, we can't be there again this year. We'd like to relocate our business to 575 Route 28 Harwich Port for the 2018 season. We'll be applying for a special permit, fast food takeout, Article 5, use regulations, paragraph 4, subparagraph 32A. Our intention is to place the truck towards the northwest corner of the lot with 4 to 5 picnic tables in front of the truck. Both the truck and the tables will be wholly within the CV zone. And actually, that's the northwest corner of the main lot, you'll see on the picture. We'll gravel the surface where the truck and tables will be for an adequate surface on which to operate. The site currently has parking spaces for the businesses located at 571 Route 28. We will not provide additional parking for the guests of the food truck. Like several other food businesses in town, such as George's Pizza and the Hot Stove Saloon, the diners would find parking elsewhere and walk to the truck. We'll be open for lunch from 11 to 3, and on Wednesday evenings, we'll serve dinner in the evening during the music and the fortnights. And there is one, did they get the?
I just handed that out.
The map, okay. So originally, we had planned on graveling, in the northwest corner, it's quite a large lot. And originally, we had planned on graveling the whole surface, like a 40 by 40 foot surface with a 13-foot wide access area for the truck to drive in. So the truck would just drive straight in and drive straight out. It became prohibitively expensive to do that, and after discussion, and Charlene agreed that it would actually be a nicer environment to actually just gravel where the truck is going to come in, drive in and drive out, and then leave the rest mowed lawn. So that is the current plan. There's to be 5 picnic tables there. There's to be just some little signs, little signs that say, there was one issue with parking question from a neighbor was concerned about it. So we're going to put up 2 signs, just the little lawn signs that say that the parking is naming the 2 businesses, Bayside Realty and Details Inc., and that there is no parking for the food truck at that site.
Okay, Charlene.
Okay. Relative to other department, the health department had no concern. Police has no issue from a criminal justice, public safety perspective. Police would ask that the location for the proposed A-frame sign does not impede pedestrian traffic along the sidewalk. Engineering, no comments received. Relative to my comments, the use is an allowable use in the CV district through the special permit process. The proposed plan is adequate for the proposed use. Abutters were notified. There is no mention of how trash will be handled.
So we have, we've never had a problem with any of this, and obviously this being my 4th time in front of you for the same thing. We do have large 50-gallon trash bin that we have on site and a recycling bin. And the staff, as part of their job description and requirements, is they walk before and after service. We walk the perimeter of the site, and obviously we'll walk a little bit more because there's quite a bit of lawn there, and to pick up any trash that's there. And all the trash is then brought back to the Cape Sea Grill and deposited in the dumpster there.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get all this down. Okay. I'm happy to hear that. The proposed A-frame sign will require a sign permit from the building department. Although there is limited parking on the site, the food truck use anticipates that customers will be parking at other locations and will walk. The board may wish to impose restriction conditions. This is just something that had been on other type permits. Condition to operate June 1 through 15, condition to only serve lunch 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and on evenings when the music in the port nights occur, and any increases in the need for additional on-site parking may require the applicant to return to the planning board for further review and approval. And based on what Jennifer did say, a proposed condition that I had under the vote on page 3, I had indicated a minimum of 2 trash can receptacles be available. Based on what has just been said, I would just say that at least 1 trash receptacle be required.
And that's not in there.
It says right now a minimum of 2 trash receptacles shall be available during the
I see.
hours. My recommendation would be that, you know, at least 1 trash receptacle shall be available. So if they feel that they do need to add another, they can do that.
I believe she said the 2 would be there, one
No,
per
there'd be-
week.
we
The
have
one
one
50 gallon.
and then we're recycling bin.
Yeah.
We've never had a problem. 2 bins, 1 recycling and trash.
Okay. Are there any comments from the board? Jim?
Okay, just 2 quick questions with regard to the timing. I mean, Charlene recommended a timing for lunch between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Is that? what
Those are our
you-
general operating
Those
hours
are
over the
your
past
I
couple of
took
years.
it from their narrative.
Yeah.
Okay, well, very good.
Yeah, so those have been our operating
then I guess there's
hours.
no problem
Yeah.
with that one. On Wednesday night, when there's the music in the port, what hours do you intend? to
Usually
operate?
5 to 9.
5
Have been
to
our
9.
hours, you know, some, usually
Would
not
you be
busy hours.
comfortable with that being included within
Yeah.
the vote?
Sure.
That you
Yeah.
would, on Wednesday evenings, you would operate within the hours of 5 p.m. till 9 p.m.?
That would be fine.
Okay, because I think we would like to be consistent with regard to both the lunch hours and
Yeah.
have,
Mhm.
yeah,
That's fine.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Joe?
I just have a question. This property, the plan you show, still has Mr. Fennell's name on it, but Mr. Miller owns it, right?
Yes, he does. There is no site, this was a challenge. So there, because it is just an empty lot at this point, there has not been any site plan done by Mr. Miller because he has not had any proposed work there. So this is the only site plan. Elaine was able to pull this for me. So you have the main one, the big one that's on the first page.
I haven't, yeah.
Yep, so that's the main one, the certified one, and that's the federal one, and that's the only one that exists for this property, or the most current is this one.
Now, if you know, and you may not, right next to you is where the old flower shop was,
White's, yes.
White's. Does he own that too?
He does. He owns the property right next door. That's why they park. So the parking lot is not technically part of, with the people who park at 571, which is Bay State Realty.
Real estate, yeah.
And it's now going to be called Details Inc., a woman, Harwich Port woman who's bringing her business over from Dennisport to Harwich Port, which is great. They park at the little parking area, which is on the lot of 575. But that's part of their agreement, is that those are their parking spaces. So we're not anticipating having our, and that's why we want
I
to put up the
understand.
signs.
My next question is, could you, or could X, a customer of yours, come in that existing drive and park, it's grass, I know that, but
Right, there isn't really, so the way it's situated, the parking, the grass isn't, we only are taking care of the grass where the truck's gonna be. So the rest of that lot is wildflowers.
I know
So,
what it is.
yeah, so it's not really set for parking,
And
so.
and the
there would
beauty
be-
salon is on your far end.
Correct, and with their parking lot. So the way it's set up right now is the, guests, or the people who have the two businesses on site park up in front of the grass and then in front of the buildings. So I think you'd have to, and there's an old cesspool in, way back in that corner. I don't want you to think you want people parking on the grass, way back somewhere in here.
I'm
Nothing
cer-
to do with us.
I'm certainly not gonna
Yeah.
oppose it, but I think parking is an issue with this project. I really do.
Well-
Only because
It's there.
it's there, and we know some things that you don't know about what is or isn't available for parking,
Right.
and especially now that Hot Stove has lost all their parking with the new building.
Well, that was never really their parking.
No, I
too.
know, I know better than you do.
Yeah, so, and I understand that, and I think, you've got places like Dr. Gravity's, and you've got the art gallery, and I think this leads to your whole, which unfortunately we're not able to stay for, at the end here with the parking situation in Harwichport. There's a lot of businesses in town, and I would say majority of them don't have their own parking. So I don't think necessarily we should be singled out for that, because I think everybody has a parking situation in town. If you look at, so a lot of the real estate companies, if you look at the Nines Art Gallery, if you look at the Hot Stove and Mason Jar and, Perks and.
The barber shop.
George, everybody. So it's, and I think we're turning into a bit more of a walking town, which is nice, and I think this will help anchor that. Now we've got, the nice Cumberland Farms and, Ember doing lunch, and we've got this nice walking community that we've developed. So that's.
Okay, any other questions? Any questions in the general public?
Good evening. My name is Peter Hurst. I have Dr. Gravity's Kite Shop in Harwichport. And my feeling, of course, that this is it's a wonderful addition, and it was very successful last year. But my concern, once again, is parking. And certainly the woman's correct in saying that it's a big issue. But I think if one looks at that lot, and I think is what Joe was saying, if you pulled in there, there's lots of room in back there. And I guess the question is why couldn't that be utilized for parking?
Well, unfortunately, that's not, we don't own, we're just leasing the space where the truck is. So we
Correct.
don't have the rights to the rest of the parking, so the rest of the empty lot. So that would be a question for the owner of the lot, and I think that it would open a whole nother ball of wax. And I think,
Well, I guess my question is, it's there, so you're gonna be in front, correct?
we're in front.
So you've got all that land in back there. And I guess I'm also talking to the planning board as well, and Joe brought up a good point. You've got all that land back there, and what if the owner said to you, okay, fine, you can park back there? What would the planning board say to that? That's my question.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not what we can table right now, and it's not something that we can offer the guests of the truck.
I think as much fun as it would like to be to allow parking on somebody else's property, they've never asked us to.
Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead.
it isn't somebody else's property. It's the property belonging to Mr. Miller.
Right.
And that's who your landlord is.
That is to my landlords, but that's not, we're not leasing that part of, we're not leasing the entire site. We are only leasing from him the front part where the truck is going to be. So we are not leasing all of this whole large area from him. We are only renting the area in the front
This
where
is-
the truck is going to be.
Okay, this is not a matter before the board. So this is not something that we're not solving it here. They're only talking about what's leased.
I understand, but what's before the board is whether or not we allow this without doing something about the parking. I'm not sure we can do anything about the parking. I'm trying to explore and find that
My
out.
intention is in no means to try to nix what these people are doing. And once again, as I said, it's a wonderful addition. My only concern is, you have that property in behind that, and it seems to me that I don't know whether they just lease just the front part, and if that's the case, then.
That's what they're telling us. I think that's what you just said, isn't it?
So you're not
Yeah.
leasing the whole property,
No,
you're
because
just
it's
leasing
sold,
that
and we
one
would
little
actually,
spot.
right, and if
Okay,
we sold, we
one-
would be
okay.
leasing the whole parking lot as well, so we're
Okay,
just
let's-
leasing this area.
Jim?
Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the matter of parking with regard to this facility is not a matter before us at this time. The matter of parking in Harwich Port is a recognized issue, and I think everybody recognizes it. There's a matter later on in the agenda to, in some ways, address that, but it is really an issue that needs to be, again, reviewed by the planning department and the town to come up with solutions, and then to discuss with the landowners, what those potential solutions may be. This
Well,
is
the
not a
matter is
matter,
clarified then,
this
my
is
part.
not a matter that is before us tonight.
I understand that, and all I just wanted was some clarification in regard to, what they were leasing. That was it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the public? Do you have another comment?
No, he's
I'm
signing
just
his
signing
name.
paper.
Oh, okay.
We know who you are, Peter.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, are there any, and no other comments before, any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none? Joe?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none? To call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried unanimously.
Motion to adopt the following findings of fact. One, said parcel for the proposed use is in the C-V district. Two, the use is a permitted use by the planning board as the special permit granting authority in the CV district. Three, the business operation is continued wholly within the CV district. Four, there will be no new site lighting in connection with the mobile food cart. Five, the operation of the food truck will be 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., excuse me, and Wednesday evenings during the music and the port nights. 6, there is a sidewalk on the south side of Route 28. 7, the pedestrian crossing of Route 28 exists to the east and west of the property. 8, the proposed use will not adversely impact traffic flow and safety. 9, the proposed use will be compatible with surrounding land uses. 10, the site is in Harwich Port and is a convenient location for providing mobile food cart services to pedestrians and visitors to the area. 11, the mobile food cart operation is seasonal by nature. 12, the applicant states that the business will be open for lunch and serve dinner Wednesday evenings. 13, the applicant must comply with all local and state food service regulations for mobile food operation. 14, the mobile food cart will not be stored at the site when not in operation.
Second. And, Mr. Chairman, I would like to offer a amendment to the motion.
I agree.
And that amendment would be in number 5, which would now read, the operation of the food truck will be 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. and Wednesday evenings during the music and the port nights from 5 p.m. till 9 p.m.
I have no objection to that amendment.
Okay? So we'll be voting on that amendment.
As amended.
As amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on the amended motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Wait a minute.
And
Motion to approve with conditions the use special permit of PB 2018-21 Main Street HP LLC as owner, C Street Productions LLC, DBA Salt Block Food Truck, Douglas J. Ramler as applicant pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich, 325-13, 432A, to operate a mobile food vending operation for property located at 575 Route 28, Map 14, Parcel V15 in the CV District. The decision is based on the above findings and the fact that the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich with the following conditions. 1, this special permit is specific to the location shown on the plan. 2, No retail sales or displays are allowed outside the truck. 3, a minimum of 1 trash receptacle shall be available during the hours that the food truck is in operation. The trash receptacle shall be removed when the food truck is not in operation. 4, the food truck shall not be stored on the site when not in operation. 5, all signage is subject to all Town of Harwich code regulations and specifically Article 7. 6, applicant shall submit updated plan for final review to the town planner prior to commencing operations.
Actually, if you would take that one out, because they did provide already the revised plan. You don't need number 6.
Okay, my question to you is, I think I heard the lady say, they're excuse me, folks, they're basically renting this, yeah,
Right.
and not this.
Right.
I think we should have a plan that says that. Shows, in other words, you're rendering like a quarter of it.
Not even, but
Not-
yes.
Yeah,
But
whatever
you're
it is.
correct.
Yeah, whatever you, and I think if that's the case, the plan should be on, it should show what you're renting.
Well,
But you
what
don't
we're
use
renting
these.
is what's outlined, literally what's outlined on there by the truck is what we're renting.
I understand that. But, in other words, somebody, well, I don't want to raise questions that are going to cause problems.
Joe, it can be defined by the border as shown on the plan.
All right,
All right.
fine.
Thank you. So are you removing item number 6?
Yes, I am, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you.
and with that removal, I will second.
And you'll third? Go ahead, David.
No, I have a question. Does item 2 conflict with the A-frame sign?
No.
Okay. Having said that, it's been moved and seconded on the amended motion. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried unanimously. Now
Thank you,
you're
ladies and
finished.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
No rhubarb arancini. The next item on the agenda, a public meeting. New business 2018-22, 3137 LLC as owner, care of Matthew P. Kelly Esquire, seeks approval of a waiver of site plan for the exterior expansion of the existing restaurant for an outdoor bar on the front patio. The property is located at 600 Route 28, map 14, parcel Z15 in the CV zoning district. It is more commonly known as Ember Pizza. The application is pursuant to the Code of Town of Harwich, Section 325. 55F is set forth in Mass General Law 40A, Section 9. Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Matthew Kelly. I represent, for purposes of this application, 3137. For our conversation, I'll refer to it going forward as Ember Pizza, Inc. The application that we're seeking today is a waiver of the requirements of site plan review. It's Ember's position that what's before the board doesn't substantially change the relationship of the structure to the site and to the abutting properties, which is the standard, as the board knows, that they have to apply. This is Brad Mallow. He's from Coastal Engineering. He drafted the site plans that you have, 3137 site plan that's right there. I think it's helpful, because sort of the knee-jerk reaction is, well, doesn't Ember already have an outdoor space? Hasn't this been here? Haven't we already? And the answer is yes. Just this way about procedural history. Back in September of last year, and I should say that Judd Brackett, one of the owners of Ember, is sitting in the front row. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have as well. Mr. Brackett received a letter from Chris Clark, the town administrator, indicating that the plans that were on file up at Town Hall in connection with the liquor license were inconsistent with what was on the ground. That started a regulatory process which has ended us here tonight, but basically what occurred at that point is application was made to the selectmen to amend the licensed premises. The selectmen approved that application pending local level planning approval. The state, the Commonwealth, the licensing committee, the ABCC, then approved the license. So the amendment to the premises has been approved already at the state level. It has been conditionally approved by the Board of Selectmen pending now. I would say this is the final stop in the process. Little background, Ember has been in existence, was purchased in 2009. It's been operating in relatively the same way since 2010. That location, as the board is probably well aware, has always functioned in the restaurant service business. The reason we found it appropriate in reviewing the bylaw to file under the waivers is it's substantially the same relationship that's always existed. There was no increase in exterior space at all. There was no increase in interior space. The parameters of what exists on the ground is the same. The use is the same. It's always been a restaurant. It continues to be a restaurant long before Ember was there. The parking is the same. It's always had the same number of seats back since even long before the Brackets purchased the property back in 2009. What triggered site plan in our conversations with the community development team was the addition of an outdoor bar. The bar was added in 2016 after a conversation with the then building commissioner. At that point, the understanding of the owners of Ember was that it was to be built in such a way as a temporary structure. That's how they believed that they built it. That has since, not agreed with anymore, and now we're here for approval. I can tell you it's been a long process. We've met with the town administrator several times. We've met with the town planner several times, the building commissioner, with the fire chief, everybody to get to this point. The idea is to continue to operate as they've operated since 2016. There's nothing additional that's before the board today that hasn't been in place for a couple of years. I'm happy to address any concerns that the board has about the project. I did lay out a couple things in my narrative that I think are worth talking about. Parking is sort of a popular topic, I guess, with your board tonight and according to the media recently. Ember, as the plan shows you, the top of the plan drafted by Coastal Engineering, has 33 seats.
Parking.
I'm sorry, 33 parking spots. We would suggest that under the waiver, not waiver the parking requirement, but under the general waiver, they're sort of at a pre-existing, non-conforming. They've always had that. It goes back many, many years. I laid out some of the offsets in my narrative that I know that the board has read. Several of the employees don't drive to work. They are compliant as you go seat number of parking spots for number of patrons. That would be supported. Obviously, the bylaw calls for a maximum one spot per employee on your maximum shift. So for 8 weeks out of the year, the parking on site is not compliant, but I would suggest there's numerous offsets that I've laid out there that actually call for the fact that 12 employees don't actually ever park there. This is the largest parking lot that I think is connected to a business besides maybe next door there. In Harwich Port, they park basically everybody on site, so I would suggest that parking is not a significant issue. I know that the town planner in her report laid out several concerns as it relates to a plan and what's on a plan and what exists on the ground. I would suggest that even the original plan filed in 2009 for application showed outdoor seating. The original liquor license had outdoor seating. The fire pit has been in existence since 2009. And why I say all that is to say that the outdoor space has always been utilized as an entertainment. And I loop that back into saying that the change, the amendment with the bar, is not substantial in nature, which allows waiver under the bylaw. Coastal's here, Mr. Brackett's here. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has as well. Thank you.
Okay, Charlene.
Actually, Matt indicated, the pre-existing non-conforming with regard to parking. I actually would agree with you on that now that I'm hearing it out loud. So I would agree regarding that. I do have a number of things regarding this, and they don't really have much to do with the parking lot as they do with the patio, as it relates to the site plan that was submitted to what the floor plan that was submitted show. So The fire department has no concerns. Health department, the Board of Health approved an outdoor seating plan to include a total of 24 exterior seats, 8 seats at the bar and 16 seats at 4 tables. The plan submitted for your review does not comply with this approval. Additionally, a site plan made on 4, and that should actually be 6/14. I was there on June 14th by myself, shows in excess of 50 seats on the patio with a reserve of more than 20 additional chairs stacked against the fence, or actually, she's saying this. This is a violation of Board of Health's outdoor seating plan and will be addressed. I will let you know that I did receive an email from Megan Eldridge today, who is the health director, indicating that she did meet with the owners of Ember, I believe on Friday, or it might have been yesterday. He will be submitting plans to the Board of Health for their July 10th meeting regarding a flexible seating plan. At this point, they understand the limitation of outdoor seating and will comply with the Board of Health approval of 24 seats outside until they formally have it adjusted. Engineering, no concerns, they defer to the building department, and police, no concerns. On a little bit of history here, on February 26, 2018, Ember went before the Board of Selectmen for a, quote, application for alteration of premises for seasonal common vicular all alcohol beverage licensed by Ember Pizza Inc., DBA Ember, 600 Route 28, Harwich Port. Justin J. Brackett, manager, contingent on applicants submitting necessary paperwork to planning and building within 90 days to be in compliance with regulations, unquote. That's exactly what appeared on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen. The vote by the Board of Selectmen was worded slightly differently and actually required the approval of the planning board be obtained within 90 days. Attorney Kelly did return to the Board of Selectmen on May 14 to seek a reconsideration of the board's vote, which did occur, and the applicant needed to submit necessary paperwork to the planning and building within 90 days of that February 26th date. Ember did meet that requirement of filing with the planning board for site plan waiver within the 90 days. 2, since the site plan approval back in 1989 and 1990, and that is the last time that the planning board saw this, that was a long time ago. Several changes have been made to what is now the patio area, including but not limited to an outdoor bar, outdoor seating, a fenced enclosure, and a fire pit. On June 14, 2018, I completed an on-site inspection of the property. During that inspection, I counted 7 tables with a total of 37 seats spread out along the western half of the patio, 14 stools in the L-shaped bar, 5 Adirondack chairs adjacent to the fire pit, which also has a short hardscape wraparound seat, 2 highboy tables, no seats, and a stack of chairs against the stockade fence. And I did provide in the packet, and they're on the screen, photographs showing that. Number 4, 2 plans, the area of the site showing the outdoor patio and table seating plan, both submitted on June 8th as part of the waiver of site plan application, are not consistent. There are many inconsistencies between those 2 plans, including but not limited to the overall area of the patio is significantly smaller on the table seating plan than on the site plan. The bar on the table seating plan is not L-shaped as shown on the site plan. The roof over the bar is not consistent between the 2 plans. See, the table seating plan does not show the fire pit as shown on the site plan. Number 5, other overall discrepancies from the plans and what was viewed on June 14, 2018 include but are not limited to A, both plans indicate 8 seats at the bar. There were 14 bar stools present. B, the table seating plan shows 6 tables and 18 seats. This is also noted on the site plan. 37 seats were counted on site, and that was not including the Adirondack chairs or the stack of chairs. The Adirondack chair and the short wall are actually convenient seating. You can't get served at those. If you want to go to the bar or whatever and get a drink, you can go sit there. A reminder that the Board of Health approved a total of 24 outdoor seats, 6 bar stools, and 16 seats and 4 tables. C, there is a tarp over a portion of the patio. This is not shown on either plan. C, this is regarding the parking. I agree, I'm not even gonna read that one. 7, the alcohol and outdoor entertainment falls under the jurisdiction of the board through licensing. 8, because the two site plans are not consistent, there are a few options available not only to the board, but also to the applicant. A, continue the matter to the next available meeting to allow the applicant to submit consistent plans. Due to the July 4th holiday, revised plans would need to be submitted to the town clerk, required number of size plans and reduced plans, no later than July 2nd at noontime. B, however, unless the applicant wishes to reduce the overall seating or the number of employees, again, that one's okay, because I agree totally with Matt regarding the pre-existing nonconformity, so that would not comply. C, the applicant would also have to have the option to withdraw the application and come back to the board with a new filing for site plan review, special permit. July 3rd is the filing deadline for the August 14th hearing. And those are my comments. Mainly, it's just the inconsistencies between the seating and table plan and what the site plan shows. Those are my concerns, that they don't jive. I did speak with Christopher Clark this afternoon, who's our town administrator, regarding the liquor license, which the chair did ask that be pulled, and he does have that information. On the liquor license, it does show 26 outdoor seats. It's my understanding from talking to Mr. Clark that any changes to that would have to go back to ABCC. How those 26 seats are configured on the patio really is not an issue, but the fact that the plans are not consistent, that is a problem, in my opinion. And that is my report.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I guess we're gonna start on the right. How's that? Mary?
You know, I love the restaurant. I have a real hard time with the inconsistencies. I have a real hard time with the fact that the outdoor seating is nowhere near 24. I was there 2 weeks ago, and there were 3 tables of more than 10 outside. To say that it's an insignificant change, to me, is a little bit disingenuous. And I have to say, in addition, it's not just the outdoor seating that's inconsistent on the ABCC application. The indoor seating didn't look consistent to me either. So those are concerns from my perspective in approving a site plan review, never mind a waiver of site plan review. Just to start off my initial thoughts.
And we're working down the table.
Yes, and I have the exact same concerns that Mary has with regard to the inconsistencies. In addition, just from casual observation, just driving by, not only do you have more seats on the patio than most of the permits seem to indicate, but there seems to be a large number of people who are just standing. So your total occupancy is even above the number of seats that you must have. And again, I'm not 100% sure of that, but just from casual observation driving by on Route 28. The second question I have is more of a question, and I understand your point on the parking issue, but there seems to be additional parking that is underutilized just adjacent to you. And I don't want to get into whatever legal relationship you have with the Sunday school, the owners of Sunday school, but it seems to me that over the years there should have been some effort to try to make some arrangements with Sunday school so that at least some of those parking spaces that are underutilized by Sunday school might have been available to your patrons. And those are my only.
Okay. I don't know if those are questions, or you want me to just wait to
Why
respond?
don't you just wait?
Why
It
don't
might
you
be
just
some-
wait?
Joe?
Well, first of all, thought occurs to me that 3 out of the number of matters that are on before our board tonight, I live within 1,000 feet of all of them.
Were you
Just-
notified by ABCC?
Yeah, oh, no. Yeah, just a quirk of circumstances. Frankly, I'm prepared to vote in a positive manner on the matter tonight. If there are some corrections that need to be made as a result It bothers me that our town planner is out counting chairs. I don't think that should be, I don't think that's your job, with all due respect. I mean, I think you're a planning director and you enforce the planning bylaws, but I don't think you're out, or should be out, should have to be out counting seats. The other thing, that it's my understanding that this applicant was told after and you can respond whatever way you want, but it was told after the license was issued that this application that we have before us tonight had to be made. When they were informed, they promptly made it. But I just don't think this one is as hard as some folks are saying, and I think it's one that we can work out. They're business folks in town. They bring money to the town, and I think we can and should work it out.
David? You don't have to comment.
No, I understand. I think what we have here is something that just sort of happened by topsy. It's a popular restaurant. In the summer, my kids go there, they take their kids, they have a good time. So the people that are managing can say, this is great, more people want to come here. Get some chairs, we'll seat them outside. We also have an obligation. If you submit an application that limits the seating, you have a responsibility to stay with that. And if you are having trouble with it, you need to come back to the powers that be to ask for changes and go through the process for that. This wasn't done. I can understand why it wasn't done. It could have happened to anybody here. You get caught up in good business. Question is now, how do we resolve it? I'm not sure that there is a real health safety problem with the number of patrons that you have on a busy night. Fact is, it doesn't comply with what you agreed to. So how do we fix it? I don't have the answers right now, but I think we need to work to fix it.
Yeah, I do too.
I would agree.
Plan your work your plan.
Okay, well, I don't want to have to chime in too much, or you're a victim of your success, I imagine. I was the manager of five liquor licenses in Boston, and if we did this in Boston, it'd be closed up by the fire chief so fast your eyeballs would fall. But you're outside, you know, and I can understand that. You've heard everybody. Tell us. You've got your chance now. Earn your money.
I'm happy to do that. I agree with Mr. McPartland, obviously. You know, from the beginning, I think the process matters here. Nothing was done. I mean, I certainly take great exception with the suggestion that anything that was done in a disingenuous manner. The plan was called for at the request of the building commissioner. I mean, excuse me, at the town administrator. Last summer, before the summer began, we sat down with the then Board of Health and went to a Board of Health hearing and talked about offset plans, okay? It was our feeling, and it remains our feeling, that you have 99 seats in your restaurant. Nobody, whether it be a Board of Health agent, the fire chief, the town planner, or anybody else, has ever made an allegation that I'm aware of that Embers exceeded that. Nobody's ever made that allegation. So our position is it's an offset. Now, I understand now that not everybody agrees with that. But I'm not aware of anything besides speculation that suggests that Ember has ever exceeded their seating capacity. Now, here's the question. The plan shows 26 or 24 seats. Well, that was done, you know, sort of in connection with an offset. You know, give us an idea. We can't file a plan for every night. And I don't know how much the board, this board, which I would suggest we're sort of outside the purview of this board in a lot of respects now, of a planning board. We're talking about what is largely a Board of Health issue. Wants to micromanage it. Should I draw 50 plans that show on a really nice night in July 28 seats? Do I draw another one that shows 38 seats? Do I draw another one that shows 48 seats and subtract the inside seating? And is this board saying that Ember is only allowed to ever have 70-some-odd seats inside. On a rainy night, is it the position of this board that they can't have 99 seats in their restaurant? Because I think it would have to apply both ways, right? You either can change it or you can't. So I think from a practical standpoint, I just disagree, you know, with this kind of micromanagement. You know, it's a nice night. If they want to do a 5-top outside and don't seat one more person inside, I think they should be allowed to do that. That's my opinion. That was sort of the conversation and the flavor that I got with Ms. Champagne, who's no longer obviously the Board of Health agent. And I will say this, in terms of the responsiveness of that, we referenced it, and Judd, Mr. Brackett said this. This came to our attention as a result of this report. And I feel obligated to say the restaurant wasn't open. There was nobody sitting in these seats. There was nobody counted in these seats. I have no issues with Charlene, the town planner's report. I take any of those pictures. I'm sure that's how many seats are on the deck. Nobody's ever seen that many seats in use. But I'm not sitting here in a disingenuous way and suggesting that there's never been more than 26 people sitting on that patio. I'm sure there has. But what I'm saying is there's never, as far as I know, been an issue with them seating more than 99 people that's been brought to their attention. And I think that's the relevant consideration. That's what their license calls for.
How many were there on February 28th?
I don't even think they were open. But, so, you know, again, we've come a long way. I think you've laid out the procedural history, selectmen back and forth, in front of the selectmen, back in front of the selectmen, met with the community development team 3 times, meetings with the Board of Health, you know, all the relevant agencies. You know, the idea, the way that this was couched to the owners of Ember back in September of 2017 was, look, we are just basically trying to get an idea of, it wasn't really about seating at that point, it was about showing us a plan that had the outdoor bar on it, because the plan that currently existed didn't have an outdoor bar on it, because as you've heard, 1989 was the last time that a plan was submitted for that location. Now that shouldn't necessarily be held against the owners of the property. They bought it, they got permitted time and time and time and time again, Board of Health, building, 99 seats, 99 seats, 99 seats. So, and I know that's not really what we're talking about. It doesn't sound like the board, you know, has an issue with the 99, you know, number. That's the number. That's what the health requires. So I guess I would ask is, you know, sort of echoing your comments, Mr. Harris, Mr. Joyce, how do you want us to fix it? I mean, do you want me to draw 30 plans and say, you know, sometimes in July this is what it looks like and sometimes in August this is what it looks like? Or do we understand that the requirement is 99 and that's what it is? And if they're compliant with that, they're compliant with that.
Having said one moment, Chris?
Mr. Chairman, my name's been used a couple times, and I do want to just provide some clarity. I think the attorney has presented that in a fair way. I was originally asked as town administrator by the Board of Selectmen as a licensing board relevant to the liquor license that there appeared to be an inconsistency with what was on the ground. I was asked from a licensing perspective on the liquor license to bring that into compliance, and as the attorney had said, and again, I agree, the outdoor bar was the primary focus. The one thing I guess I would like to ask, and I've looked at this, I've been in administration for quite a while, we do have different standards for different requirements. And how do we act in a consistent way for an applicant? And what I would propose this evening is that, and I don't make up all these rules, ABCC makes up the rules that we have to follow, but ABCC says from a licensing perspective, we're supposed to show the approximate area and the number of seats. So from a licensing perspective, and they've already gone through the expense of going to ABCC, the Board of Selectmen have already looked at it, and I think are in agreement with the concept. So from an ABCC perspective, we know what we have, we know what's already on the ground, we have the bar outside, so let's make sure we have a plan that reflects what was submitted to ABCC.
Yeah.
And what I've learned in the time is that they could have, I don't make this stuff up, but they could have, from a building perspective, that they can have an occupancy load of 100 people and only 25 seats, and they're fine. Because it's an occupancy standard for when you stand. So from a building perspective, you have one standard. And then how the septic system works is then driven by also the number of seats, and there has been arrangements made for making sure the number of seats can be controlled so we don't go above and beyond the septic systems. But we are, at least as an organization, trying to create a rationality for what we're asking people to do. So I guess I stand here this evening to say the applicant has been responsive. And if he has been responsive and has done what we've asked him to do, which was to update a plan from 1989 that didn't reflect what's on the ground now, that we should reflect what's on the ground now and to move forward and approve it. I didn't get a chance to look at I was actually here for the other issue, so you will see me again. But I think that if we can approve it based upon the site plan that is consistent, and make sure it's consistent with what was submitted to ABCC, so the applicant doesn't have to go back to ABCC again to change a plan if there's a revised number of seats. So as long as the ABCC plan matches what is submitted, at least from an administrative standpoint relevant to the liquor license, you know, I think that that's consistent and should be approved, quite honestly.
Okay, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit confused about some of the issues, and I'm trying to sort of separate them so that we can start dealing with them.
Absolutely.
And the first one is the consistency of the plans, and I think that's a fairly easy issue to sort of deal with. We just need a plan that shows what's there. My second concern is, and correct me anybody if I'm wrong, but it appears as if what's there is beyond what was approved by the Board of Health. And I don't feel that the planning board has the power to overrule the Board of Health and change an approval of the Board of Health. Therefore, I think we have two issues to resolve. One is the consistency of the plan, and to show what's actually there. And then if we see what's actually there, we can vote on what's actually there. But if it's more than what has been approved by the Board of Health, I think we need the Board of Health to revise their approval or to go back and revisit the issue to see if they would approve what's actually there.
Having said that, Counselor, if we were to choose to continue the matter, could you do a set of plans up by next Friday?
I mean, I guess to,
You
yes.
don't have to do the plans, ask the guy to sit beside you.
Well, I mean, I guess my answer to that would be, of course we can do that. You know, and if that's what it's gonna require to get this done in a positive manner, then we'll do it. But I guess what I would look for is a little bit of guidance, like I'm gonna harken right back and what the town administrator just says. You know, the plans that you have, I mean, they're correct 95% of the time. You know, and that's what you have. That's the idea, and I think Mr. Clark said it, and I agree. The ABCC is asking for sort of a general flavor of what's on the ground. You know, so what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to instruct, you know, Coastal or Judd or Mr. Brackett to give me with 40 seats outside? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You know? So, yeah, sure. Can we drop it?
To answer what Jim suggested is that if we find something that's within the parameters of the Board of Health that also is consistent, then that would probably be, and then if you have to change it later on, you can change it later on come September or October, but, you know.
Well, there's already an offset plan
Okay.
at the Board of Health. They have a winter and a summer, and that's my understanding.
Okay, Chris, go ahead.
Just on the offset, I would be careful about using the Board of Health. I mean, certainly they have to comply with the health regulations, but we do have certain circumstances already in the community in which there could be 100 seats, let's say, for liquor license, but under the septic, there could be 75, and the applicants, at least in the experience I've been here, that the Board of Health does require that some of the seating be sectioned off, so it be kept to that level. So that's why when I said, and I said it on purpose, that I think you link it to the ABCC number, and then if the Board of Health, if the septic system only allows a certain amount, then that could be actually actively managed, and that's the way the Board of Health has dealt with those situations in the past.
The only difference, if I might, the only difference between what the Board of Health has required and in talking with Megan, they're coming back with a revised plan for this offset seating. The only difference is Board of Health says 24 seats, ABCC only says 26 seats. And I agree entirely, there can be 26 seats there, and there can be 70 people standing around, and that's okay.
Yep.
I have no problem with that. It's just, you know, part of my job is to make sure that what we're getting, what this board is getting for a plan is consistent with what is on the ground. And when I went out there, they were not. So that's part of my job,
Okay,
like
I think
counting
what we're
parking
looking for is
spaces.
something that works. Do you have a suggestion, Chief?
I don't have a suggestion.
Well, then sit down.
Well, actually, I do. I think they're doing a great job. I think we should leave them alone, but I'm sure that it's a lot more complicated than that. My name is on, I have to sign off on these restaurants every year, and I take that very seriously. The management of this restaurant has been excellent. When you don't know about things when things are going well, you don't know about them in March, but you know about them in June and July and August when maybe you drive by there and you can say, yeah, there's a lot of people there. But they do meet, as far as life safety and the building code, they're within their rights. They're within their parameters of how to operate their business. And the other thing I look to is the responsibility of the owners and on-site management. Exactly. And it's excellent. I have no issues with how they operate their business. It's very popular, and it's at times, on the outside looking in, it seems like businesses are being punished for being popular. And I don't think that's fair. I think they need to follow the rules, and I don't speak for the planning department or the health department, but I work in conjunction with the building commissioner, and I work in conjunction with the fire inspector. And by the way, unannounced inspections are done by me. I have not had a problem there. It's a well-run business, and they are within their parameters as far as the formula for seating and standing. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I, one thing, Mr. Chairman, if I can.
Yes.
I think there's a little confusion. The plan that has been submitted, in my calculation, the site plan submitted by Coastal Engineering, the focus plan, if you will, the architectural rendering, and what's on file at the ABCC, all do depict the same thing. There's no inconsistencies on those plans as they relate to each other. What is arguably inconsistent is what the investigation of the town planner found when she went out. So in terms of from like what is on paper here, this plan, which you have, the big one, this plan, the blow up, and this plan, I believe, if I remember correctly, I filled it out, but it was a while ago, is what was attached to the ABCC. So from what's the plan, no pun intended, going forward, you know, I think all these plans show 26 seats. So I'll get back to, you know, just not to beat a dead horse here, but 26 seats total outside, correct. So the inconsistency would be what was discovered, I guess, when the business wasn't open on an afternoon, you know, by the town planner. What I will say, though, is the issues that are being raised, correctly so, is if there's an issue with too many seats, my understanding is that's a Board of Health or a fire thing to enforce. You know, whether or not that, you know, is what we're here for site plan, to see whether or not the waiver substantially affects the relationship between the business and the neighborhood. I would suggest it doesn't.
Yeah.
We generally don't count seats, we usually sit in them.
And the owners of Ember are welcome to have you continue to sit in them. That's the whole goal. That's the whole goal. That's why we're here.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So, essentially, you're saying that you feel that what you submitted to us tonight, this plan, which is the...
Coastal plan.
Coastal.
Yeah, and this plan, that's the one with the seating in it, I think. Those are your submissions. In other words, you have no reason or intention to change them.
Well, that's not quite what I'm saying. What I'm saying is those plans are consistent with each other. So to suggest there's inconsistent plans that have been filed is not correct. What I'll submit is those plans are arguably inconsistent to what the town planner indicates in her report. What I'm saying is that is where we sort of have a rub, if you will, about how detailed the plans need to be, where the 99 seats need to show, all those things. But I would submit that the general configuration that's in front of the board tonight, the planning board, on these plans is correct. And I'm also, in full disclosure, submitting that on a busy night in July, there would potentially be more people sitting on that patio, obviously. And I don't know, again, what level of micromanagement, what level of detail, is required to make everybody feel good about this. And honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I think my position remains the same, that for a site plan waiver review, the standard that needs to be applied by the board per the bylaw, these plans are sufficient. That's my position.
I guess I'm getting a little bit confused about one issue. and I don't know whether you should answer, Charlene or Chris, but is there some additional review going on by the Board of Health?
My understanding from the email that I received from Megan yesterday is that she met with the applicant and that they will be submitting revised plans for July 10th hearing or meeting with the Board of
Meeting
Health.
Board of Health.
Yes.
Well, in that, you know, I mean, I think it's very easy to make plans consistent, so I'm not too concerned about that part of the issue. I mean, I'm just concerned about the planning board taking a role of overruling the Board of Health. And if the Board of Health is going to revisit the issue on July 10th, maybe what we should do is continue the matter until our next meeting, which is July 12th, and then
No, you meet July 10th.
We meet July 10th?
Make sure they go first on the
Okay.
agenda and you're last here.
Same building.
Whatever, but continue the meeting until we get further clarification as to what the Board of Health is going to do.
I mean,
Yes.
Just quickly, if we were to do that, I'm not so sure, I think we have to, but if we were to do that, that doesn't affect your client's ability to continue to be in business, does it?
Well, that's an interesting question. I gotta defer to the building commissioner. The
Yeah.
approval, as was read by the town planner, is correct. They were issued temporary permits to operate the outdoor spaces to July, and we'll talk about hopefully a little less the port in a minute, but till July 9th. So those permits expire July 9th. However, the wording
Who
of
issued those, please?
the,
Apologize.
they're from the commissioner. That he, the building commissioner is the one who has obviously the authority under the bylaws to issue the permit for them to operate outdoor with a structure. Those were issued as part of the agreement with the selectmen temporarily to July 9th. And again, I don't think anybody here can speak for the building commissioner, but what the wording of the vote was as long as they were actively going through the application process, that nobody was going to interfere with their ability to do business. I would hope, and my expectation would be, that if it's the will of this board to continue it, which I really hope we didn't have to do, but I understand, I get it, then that those permits would be extended. Obviously, you're talking about 8 golden weeks right here, and you take away their ability to operate in those weeks would just be.
That's why I asked the question.
Wouldn't make a lot of sense. How would I put it that way? As nice as I can put it. So I would hope that the building commissioner would see his way to extending their temporary permit while we figure this all out, but I can't speak for him.
Mary,
Can I ask one question through you to the fire chief, please?
please.
Chief, just one clarification. When you're talking occupancy in the building, are you typically looking for occupancy inside and outside as being delineated separately?
As far
So
as.
they've got 99.
The building code is a bit odd in that you can assign levels of occupancy to different parts of the building. We generally look at a total occupancy. And that even gets more complicated because it changes if you're seating, if you're sitting at a bar, or if you're standing.
Yeah.
And in the review that I've been a part of, they don't exceed that. You can mix and match as they see fit.
Understood.
Okay.
I guess my one last comment would just be, when it comes to being consistent, what's inside, your numbers inside and your numbers outside. If you're approved for 24 at the Board of Health, or you're subsequently approved for 50 at the Board of Health outside, then I personally wouldn't care which tables are where, but you've got total numbers. You've got total numbers inside, you've got total numbers outside.
I think it's.
Whether it's seating and not concerned with fire code per se, but that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying inconsistency.
We look at total occupancy, and they're within their total occupancy.
Yeah.
Good to know.
And again, we look at the safety of the building. It's extremely safe, and the management of the building is excellent. The fire department has no issues with the operation.
Good to know. Thanks, Chief.
And while,
Okay, well, we're,
I have one other.
feel free.
It was game, set, match when I heard from the fire chief, okay? I mean, that to me is what this is all about underneath. And I just repeat the fact that I'm prepared to vote tonight.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, the
primary responsibility of a jurisdiction is health and safety. When the application was sent in, somebody pulled 24, 26 seats or people out of the air, not realizing that in time this would become a very popular destination, and that number would be wrong from a standpoint of who shows up every night, or especially on Friday, Saturday nights. But health and safety is the paramount. That's why I was especially wanted to hear the chief's comments about health and safety issues. And I sit with Joe. I'm ready to move forward on this tonight.
And before we move forward, we've heard from the board, we've heard from everyone else. Now, the general public's been sitting here and not had an opportunity to say anything, so if anybody from the general public would like to make a comment, please feel free. Go right ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. My name is Rita Kyriakides.
Can
I
you
live
please
at-
write your name down?
I
on the-
will.
Thank you, because I'll
I
never
won't forget.
spell your name
I won't
right.
forget. I live at 78 Bank Street, which any of you who know Bank Street knows that the Ember parking, the exit is literally maybe just diagonal from us. And I wasn't prepared to talk tonight because I really can't speak to Board of Health or inside seating, outside seating. I can only tell you that they're lovely neighbors. Don't know if you want to, that just goes for the record. Fire chief has said his share, but we live there. We've lived there for 21 years. We've seen other restaurants there. And yes, we've had to get used to the trash being picked up at 5 a.m. But the trash is picked up. And the dumpster's empty and there isn't any mess. And we were concerned when they went for the outdoor entertainment license that it was going to be forever music-based, and it isn't. And they're lovely. And I know when I work at Witchmere, and when those weddings get out of Witchmere, and there's standing room only at Ember, it's a good thing. People are walking. They're walking to either back to their Airbnbs or we have our concerns, which isn't for tonight, and that is the parking along Bank Street, along those condominiums across where we live, but that's not for tonight. And some of the children that play out in the grassy area. We don't want anything that's unsafe. But again, that's not for tonight. We just wanted, I really didn't plan on speaking, but I'm glad I am, because they're lovely. And Ember's a good thing. That's it.
Please write your name down.
Thank you.
Did somebody steal the pen?
For sure.
Yep.
No, that's not even the pen, it's a different pen. Somebody took it.
That's our pen.
Looks like that.
I bet you didn't think I was going to say that, did you? I bet you thought I was going to say it.
I'm waiting for that.
So, hi, I'm Jake Domos. I have worked under the brackets. I'll write my name down.
Okay.
In a second. I've worked for them for a better half of a decade, almost 10 years, and I worked at Ember for about 6 of them. And I can just attest that whether it's trying to get more parking at the Sunday school or every single permit they've ever had to go through, they are diligent and work extremely hard to abide by whatever you guys ask. And I feel like it's almost more than anyone else, and I feel like they handle it very well, and that's all. Jake.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
So, I have a bit of health and safety experience, Chief, I think you know that, a little bit. So it sounds to me like the issue I raised with plan your work, work your plan, as they've done it.
They have.
And, Mr. Clark, ABCC, they're good there, right?
Yes.
Okay, the will of the board.
Move to close the public hearing?
Not a public hearing.
Not a public hearing.
What is it?
It's a public
Public
meeting.
meeting.
Move to close the public meeting?
You don't need to do that either.
I knew I did.
You don't have to move, and Jim doesn't have to second.
Okay.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing that.
I
Hearing
move-
none.
I move to adopt the following. 1, that the parcels are in the CV zoning district. 2, the application does not substantially change the relationship of the structure to the site and to the abutting properties. 3, there will be minimal change to building coverage and site coverage. 4, there will be limited impact on other existing uses of the site.
It's been
Oh, I'll
moved.
second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed.
What was your
Mary is
vote?
opposed. I'm in favor.
Okay.
Okay. Finally, I move to approve case PB 2018-23 for a waiver of site plan for case PB 2018-22 3137 LLC as owner, care of Matthew P. Kelly Esquire, for exterior expansion of the existing restaurant for an outdoor bar on the front patio for property located at 600 Route 28, map 14, parcel Z15 in the CV zoning district, more commonly known as Ember Pizza. The motion for approval is based on the findings of fact above, and that the fact that the proposal does not substantially change the relationship of the structure to the site or to abutting properties and structures, and the application meet the necessary requirements and criteria for approval.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I would still be in favor of the continuance with regard, because I would like to know a little bit more about what's going to happen with the Board of Health. I would be prepared to vote for this motion as it has been made with the following amendment. That adding a condition that the applicant would adhere to the rulings and the terms and conditions set forth by the Board of Health.
I'll agree to that amendment.
Yes, with that amendment, I would be agreeable to that forward.
Okay.
And the seconder agrees.
And the seconder
Oops, I
agrees
forgot
to
you
the
were the
amendment. Yes, he seconded. So we will now vote on the amended motion to include the comments from the Board of Health. Any further discussion? No further discussion, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay. We're done with that.
Thank you.
But you can sit right there.
I know.
Okay, the next item on the agenda. Thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is
Actually, it's not.
PB 2018-23, 543 Main Street Condominiums Trust as owner, care of Matthew P. Kelly Esquire, seeks approval of a waiver of site plan for exterior expansion of the existing restaurant for an outdoor bar on the back patio. The property is located at 541 Route 28, map 14, parcel U6 in the CV zoning district, and is more commonly known as the Port Restaurant and Bar. This application is pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich. Section 325-55F is set forth in Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, 89, 9. Counselor.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members of the board, I'm not going to go through the same procedural history because it's exactly the same. An outdoor bar was added to the port before last summer, consistent with the way that it was added to Ember. It was brought to the attention via a letter from the town administrator that plans needed to be updated. The same things occurred. Application was made to the Board of Selectmen. They approved, contingent upon all the other town boards, this board included, approval of the amended plan. We then did the same thing with community, the community leaders, Charlene, fire, everybody, and here we are. I would suggest it's the same standard the board needs to apply as a waiver. Substantially doesn't change the relationship. This one, hopefully, may be a little bit easier for the board. The last site plan that was filed for the port is actually much more recent. The port, in its current iteration, has filed 2 site plans. Back in 2003, when the Brackets bought the property, the board may remember it used to be a clothing store. Obviously, that required a full site plan review. They filed a full site plan review in 2003. In 2013, they acquired the property. Sort of now it's part of the port, but as you look at it from Route 28 to the left, it's I think commonly known as the raw bar side of the port. They also filed a site plan in connection with that in 2013 that was approved, as neither of those structures before were restaurants. Those both gained approval from this board. There have been some minor changes that have occurred on the back patio area. An outdoor bar, which is far smaller in nature than the one that is at Ember, has been added, along with some decking, a lower decking. Those are really the only changes to the port that exist since the 2013 application for site plan. So I think this application is very well suited for waiver. It doesn't substantially change the relationship. The additions are fairly minimal. I'll leave it there and happy to answer any questions the board has.
Good. Charlene?
I'm not going to go through the history. I do believe that there are minor inconsistencies between the site plan and the seating plan. There's also a basketball hoop on an adjacent lawn area that's not shown on the most easterly parking spaces. There's a tarp over a portion of the outdoor bar seating. This is not shown. I have driven by the site after 5 p.m. and noticed that the gate on the east side of the building, between the building and the fence along the property line, was open to the back outdoor bar area with an A-frame sign pointing to the outdoor bar. It does not appear that this was part of the original site plan back in 2003, or 13 for that matter. Within the past week, a building permit application was filed for a roof area to cover the existing fence storage. This has not been moved forward, primarily because the site plan does not show this. It's more for information. The exterior seating does allow for food service at different times. Board of Health has authorized this based on the total number of seats allowable on the site. Again, alcohol and outdoor entertainment fall under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen through licensing. Also, just to raise the flag that there are a number of additional signs on the property, A-frames and wall signs on the rear of the building and the outside bar area, which I believe do not have sign permits. And that's all I have.
Okay. First, comments from the board. Joe?
Counselor, how many actual outdoor seats do you have? I count, I think 6, but I'm not sure.
I'd have to look at the plan. Yeah, I think that's right as it relates to the side of the walkway there. There's some benches there. There also were part of an offset plan, not to go back into that was presented to the health department last year.
If I might, there's actually 17 outdoor seats, including the bar,
Okay.
and that's not counting the bench, based on your plan.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions?
And the only other question I had, and do I count correctly, you have 16 or 17 parking spaces?
That's correct, but not to foreshadow what's coming your way, but they fall within the 300 feet of the municipal lot located across the street.
Oh, I know that. I know that.
And
Yes.
that was part of the 2003 approval.
Correct. And yes, but Mr. McFarland, that is correct. There are 16 spots behind the port.
Any questions I have? Thank you.
Okay. Jim? No? Any other questions? Other- Any questions from the general public? Ooh, okay. Oh, step right up.
Hi, my name is Mary McDonald. I'm a longtime summer resident in the port, and I own a home in Harwich. And traveling through the port this weekend, I have to say I was shocked at the signage. The number of sandwich boards and the number of signs that are plastered on a lovely restaurant, I find offensive. I run a business, art business in Lexington, and I could no more put that amount of signage on my building. I just couldn't do it. I believe signs are something that you have to pay about $55 a piece for. I've also heard that some of the sandwich boards blew last year and damaged kids' cars as they were traveling up and down C Street. I do not like the name Naughty Bar either in a community such as the port. And it's a lovely restaurant. I'd like to see it stay that way. I don't mind the bar either. I'd like a lovely bar.
Okay, thank you. Can you? Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we don't have jurisdiction over the signs, do we? Isn't
I'm
that
just
the-
raising that as a point of reference so the
No, I
applicant
understand.
knows he has a sign
But we don't
issue.
have jurisdiction. That's the building inspector.
I mean, I agree with that.
I mean, I have to say this, I always laugh about the sign stuff because we have nobody to enforce it. In this, that's not your problem, but it's the building inspector who has that authority to say, yes, you can have those, or no, you can't, or I think you put a little sign up at the end of the front area of the place there recently. I mean, I assume that you go to the building inspector and get permission to do that. I don't know that you do, but if you don't, that's where you have to go.
I agree.
Okay, let's see, no other comments? We have to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing.
It's not a public hearing, you don't need to
have
close
I
anything.
said.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be,
Oh, what happens?
Yeah, they die hard.
Yeah, it's brutal.
yeah,
Motion to adopt the following, that the parcels are in the CV zoning district. 2, the application does not substantially change the relationship of the structure to the site and to the abutting properties. 3, there will be minimal change to building coverage and site coverage. 4, there will be limited impact on other existing uses of the site.
I'll second.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion is read by Mr. McCrone.
Aye.
Against? Opposed? It's carried.
Move to approve case PB 2018-23 for 543 Main Street Condominium Trust as owner, care of Matthew P. Kelly Esquire, a waiver of site plan pursuant to the code of the town of Harwich, 325-55.F, for exterior expansion of the existing restaurant for an outdoor bar on the back patio for property located at 541 Route 28, map 14, parcel U6 in the CV zoning district, and is more commonly known as the Port Restaurant and Bar. The motion for approval is based on the findings of fact above, and that the fact that the proposal does not substantially change the relationship of the structure to the site or to abutting properties and structures, and the application meets, meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval.
I'll second. But, Mr. Chairman, I would like to offer an amendment, and that amendment would be similar to what we did in the case that just proceeded, that the applicant adhere to the regulations of the town of Harwich Board of Health.
They already do.
But I'd like to,
If you want it in there.
I'd like that as a condition.
I agree with
to
it.
this vote.
Okay.
I agree with the amendment.
Okay. You agree with the amendment? So is there any discussion on the amended motion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried.
Mr. Chairman, that vote was
Unanimous.
motion as amended.
As
As
amended.
amended.
Thank you.
And perhaps you can take note of some of the comments here with the signs.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we
The next-
take like 2 minutes?
Yes. Take a 2-minute recess.
How about 3?
Yeah, you can go for 4 if you'd like. We're going to take a couple-minute recess. Unless you want to come up and talk.
I'm all ready to go.
Getting back to order.
In terms of any neighborhoods.
The next item on the agenda is item C, PB 2018-25. The Town of Harwich, the Selectmen, as owner, seek approval of a waiver of site plan to amend the existing municipal parking lot at Schoolhouse Road. The property is identified as 0 Schoolhouse Road, map 14, parcel F3, in the RM and CV zoning districts. The application is pursuant to the code of the Town of Harwich, section 325-55F. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This evening I have Julie Kavanaugh, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Board of Health.
Sorry, I'm talking about Board of Health, so much you got me going. And then the Fire Chief and the Police Chief, respectively. I'm here this evening that we have, obviously there's been several comments made this evening in regards to parking in Harwich Port. Obviously there's been some activity in the private sector that has created a decrease in the amount of parking available. And I believe that the Chamber of Commerce did the right thing by coming to us, identifying and saying that we have a parcel of land that the town has that is part of the schoolhouse parking lot that we could utilize in the short term in which to alleviate some of the parking situation. I did have an opportunity today to go out and look at the site, so I am very familiar with the site, as well as obviously using the parking lot during the time here as the administrator. In terms of when the Chamber submitted a letter, it went to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen was very supportive and asked me to put together a plan to present to you this evening. The reason for the waiver is I'd like to try to see what we can get accomplished this year to try to free up and create some parking. This is going to be a kind of a venture that's going to need some more resources than we have internally. So just as a for instance, I believe it was 2 years ago, we went and did an agreement through the Board of Selectmen, a license agreement with TD Bank, and we created that little driveway and access that lot. So the fact that Harwich Port is successful is a great thing for the community, but it also creates issues that we need to try to resolve. And as the administrator, I can only try to attempt to resolve with the Board of Selectmen in areas in which we have control over. So 2 years ago, we came and we put in a driveway to access the TD Bank lot. I think that generated about 27 spaces. And if I'm wrong on my count, I apologize, but just roughly. And then this year, knowing that we were going to be down about 40 spaces because of the parking across the street under the renovation that you guys approved, and that's fine. This is good. Again, that development occurs, but we lost some parking there. In an effort to make up for that, I did direct my DPW director that when he goes in and restripes the lot, to maximize the number, to try to take some of that crunch out. So we did do that. I believe that one we had about 13 spaces.
17 additional.
17 spaces, thank you. And so we're trying to address a concern. And I do think after walking the site today, and I certainly have read some of the letters that came in fairly recently that raised some concerns, that I do think some of those concerns are being addressed in the plan that was submitted this evening. And what do I mean by that? When we walked the site, the things that really stuck out to me is there's quite a few large trees that could be public shade trees, and they are along what would be the 20-foot setback buffer. Okay, you do have the plan, thank you. Along Pleasant Street itself. So those trees would be retained. So the idea is to retain the buffer for the residences on Pleasant Street. So the idea is not to go as far as we can go and create all the parking right up to the street. The second is we would have a 10-foot buffer along the neighbor, I guess that would be to the east, the Gardeners by this plan. We would retain a 10-foot buffer and keep as many of those trees as possible. And the idea, we do need to create a barrier between the existing access of the current driveway. There is a request by the board, and based upon concerns from public safety, which is the reason why I have them up here, that we need to be able to get access to and from that. I would propose this evening that we would put some kind of fencing. There's already plans up there, so we would have a rail fence and potentially put some seagrass in along that stretch to differentiate that from the driveway. So, and then the other part to this, what we would attempt to do this year, I have kind of given a little bit of a heads up to my DPW director to see what he can do. The site is fairly level, so I think that he could go in and do some initial work. I've learned my lesson, and I've made commitments to this planning board that we will not go in and clear cut trees and do things until we come and have a discussion. So nothing's been done unless we can get
There's a tree removal guy on the site too.
Waiver. The other thing, and I don't, you know, I do want to say this in all seriousness, the one thing that really stood out to me, and I've been in this business for a long time, but we had 6 signs up there that said no dumping. And what that tells me is the reason why 6 signs have been put up is because it is a source of an area where people dump. And we do need to clean it up. And I think in this case, we do have the opportunity to address multiple issues. We can take some of the concern out of the immediate need that we have this summer by creating some limited parking in there this year. There will have to be a subsequent budget request to do what is laid out in the site. But receiving the waiver this evening would at least give me the ability to have some of our troops go in there and start to create some parking and address some of the concerns that have been raised by the businesses in this area. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're seeking tonight. It is a waiver. We certainly do not wish to remove the barrier. We want to keep the barrier, keep those mature trees that are in that area. But we do need and recognize the need that we do need to address parking. And really what the town can do in the short term and in the long term is to look at this area. One of the things that I was kind of struck by is in your own regulation, the opinion of the planning board, that does this substantially change the relationship of the request with the structure that's there? And I'm a simple guy. We have a parking lot and we want to expand a parking lot. So to me, you know, the request before you is a little bit simplistic, that we're just looking to expand the existing parking that's already there. And we will agree to keep the green space in which to make sure that we buffer the neighbors to the best of our abilities.
Okay, thank you. Charlene?
The engineering, the area proposed for parking is in the residential zone, the RM zone. Fire, I'll let him speak for himself, but in his written comments said no concerns. Fire chief strongly supports this expansion. This will enhance public safety. Health had no comment. Police indicated no concerns, but I'm sure the chief will speak himself regarding this. The town owns the entire property consisting of the chamber building and the parking lot. The chamber has a long-term lease for the building, while the parking is the responsibility of the town. Municipal use is allowed within this zoning district and frankly, all zoning districts. Parking is desperately needed in the Harwich Port area. The town has added approximately 40 spaces over the last 2 years, including the parking area at the rear of TD Bank and the restriping of the Schoolhouse Road parking lot, but still more is needed. Additional parking will contribute to the economic development of the Harwich Port Village, a truly quaint walking village. Because of the restrictions within the 2004 site plan, no removal of trees, this request does require additional planning board approval. 5, a 20-foot buffer has been maintained from Pleasant Street, except for a very small backing area, as shown in that plan. I just lost my space. And a 10-foot buffer from the abutting property on the east would be maintained. 6, a fence of some design should be added along the existing driveway to the parking. and the new parking space to ensure that it's not a free-for-all, that people aren't just cutting in, and that's why I did this design to show that, you know, a rail and post fencing system, 10-foot rails with posts, perfect delineation for parking along that west side of the expansion of the parking area. 7, the parking lot as proposed would be bluestone. I'm not sure we want to do bluestone or maybe T-base. Bluestone's a little bit nastier on your feet, and on cars, bluestone or T-base allows for some drainage and also is a more durable. You don't kick up like you might with the bluestone. In the future, and provided funding is available, the area could be paved. And finally, I do believe that the request and application are consistent with filing requirements.
Okay, thank you, Charlene. And Joe, you have a comment?
We are in receipt of a letter from Attorney,
Oh, I was going to speak to both of those, actually.
yeah, we're in receipt of a letter from Attorney David S. Reed. Is he here?
He's here.
And I won't, it's getting late, so, and it's been a long night. But basically, if I read your letter correctly, sir, and I certainly give you a chance to say what you have to say about it, he's basically telling us we can't do this because of the way the bylaws in the town are set up. I don't know if it's right or wrong. What I want to do is, I happen to be a lawyer, but I'm smart enough not to take my own advice. So, and this board does have counsel. And I, with all due respect, Mr. Administrator, I wouldn't vote on this until I had the lawyer for the planning board say, yes, you can, or no, you can't, or someplace in between. And I'm not going to take the time to read a 4-page letter, but maybe Mr. Reed could speak to us as to the content of his letter and his position on behalf of the neighbors.
While you're getting ready,
When you're
Council,
ready.
I'm going to let one of the other board members.
Sure.
Yeah, well,
sure.
actually, I was going to ask the same question that Joe asked.
Hop on up, Counselor.
If we could have Mr. Reed just briefly summarize the points that he made in the letter. Certainly. I think while we've all read the letter, I think we need to have this all on the record.
And by the way, Mr. Chairman, this is another project within a couple of thousand feet of my home.
You gotta move.
Yeah, I may have to.
I have already signed in, Charlene. I'm Attorney David Reed. As you mentioned, my letter of June 22, I hope is in your record, and I'm pleased to hear that you've all had the chance to read it, and I hope you have. I represent 2 of the residential abutters, Bob Cohn and Marcia Casey of 29 Pleasant Street, and Kristen Ferrioli of 27 Pleasant Street, which is the immediate abutter to the treed area in the northeast corner of this property. To summarize, as you've said, the points of my letter are that this procedure, asking for a waiver, is first and foremost inappropriate under the bylaw. It does not come close, in my opinion, to the standard for which a waiver is intended. And even if it were granted, it would be completely ineffective. It's inappropriate because the standard for a waiver is that what's proposed not change in any substantial relationship, in any substantial way, the relationship between the existing site and improvements, and not just the building within the site, but also the abutting sites and neighbors. This is going to increase the size of this parking lot by approximately 50%. And I say approximately because I'm not sure how many spaces are legally there now. In 2002, you approved a site plan special permit when the Chamber of Commerce building was replaced. What's now shown on this plan, including not only the proposed sites, but the angled sites down the sides and middle of this parking lot, are not on your approved 2002 plan. They were relined apparently by DPW on their own, of their own volition, with the administration from the town, but not apparently with your approval, even though you had previously approved a specific site plan for the parking. I don't know if the TD Bank proposal of a couple of years ago came before you, but frankly it should have, because it also altered the layout of that parking lot. But what's proposed tonight is going to increase the size of the parking lot by about 50%, and therefore is going to increase the traffic entering and exiting from Pleasant Street in whatever proportion comes in and out from either end. But there's undoubtedly going to be a proportionate increase in the traffic into the residential neighborhood, and this is residentially zoned property, by something close to that same percentage. We're now going to have the effect of headlights and noise from traffic and people and vehicles traveling over bluestone or something other than a quieter pavement in much closer proximity to the homes than it is now. You're also going to have the removal of the trees, at least most of them, in this entire area that's proposed to be now become parking, which you previously determined should not be touched. In 2002, when you approved the Chamber of Commerce parking plan and site plan, you said none of the trees were to be removed. These are the only trees on that site in this northeast corner. They're now proposing to remove them. You also said in 2002 that they would maintain the 33% green space coverage for the site. I don't know what the green space is for the proposed plan because they haven't calculated that on the plan, at least not that I saw, but it's certainly going to be less than it's there now. And what's there now presumably is the 33% green space that was proposed back in 2002. So those are substantial changes in the site in direct relation to the residential neighborhood. Those are not something that you can waive as an insubstantial change in the relationship between the two properties. Even if you were to vote tonight to waive a prospective site plan review special permit requirement for this property, they could not build legally what's before you. Because notwithstanding such a waiver, the conditions that you imposed in 2002 in the special permit remain in effect. There is still conditions that you imposed that said the trees cannot be removed and they cannot have less than 33% green space coverage on this property. Those conditions will remain. And the moment they start clearing this area and cutting down trees, the town is in violation of its own special permit. In addition, your bylaw says that when a pre-existing non-conforming parking lot is enlarged, it must comply with the current parking lot requirements of the zoning bylaw. And the only way they can avoid that is to come back to you for another special permit to do something less than full compliance. The current parking lot and the proposed parking lot do not comply with your parking lot requirements. The proposed new spaces are listed as being 19 by 9 feet in size. The bylaw requires 19 by 20. 9 by 19 may be great, but it's not conforming. The parking lot also requires that the angled spaces be 9 by 19, I believe, as well. They're not labeled on this plan, so I don't know whether they conform or not. The bylaw also requires that it be a tree and 90 square feet minimum of a treed island for one for every 5 parking spaces on the lot. That's 19 trees that need to be planted, plus 19 90 square foot islands for each tree. Those are not there. Those are not proposed. You might choose to waive some or all of that, but you can only waive that by a special permit procedure under the site plan review bylaw. You can't waive that by waiving off the process. Finally, the bylaw requires that at least 10% of the entire parking lot area be landscape islands, not pavement. Again, you can waive some or all of that by issuing another special permit. But until you do so, the parking lot is in violation, and once they expand it, the entire parking lot becomes in violation of those requirements, absent a new special permit from you. Special permit conditions and zoning bylaw requirements cannot be waived by a Section F waiver. A Section F waiver is only waiving prospective need for an additional site plan review process. The only way the existing conditions can be modified and the only way the zoning bylaw can be varied in this process is by you granting a new special permit, which you cannot do tonight because they have not applied for that. So I suggest to you that while there may well be a need for additional parking, and while this may be a good idea from a municipal planning point of view and from a commercial point of view for the adjoining commercial district, this is not the way that it should be done. This is not the way that it is allowed to be done. It should be done by a full site plan review application where you have the authority to assess the need for waivers, for the need for relief, and for the impact that it will have upon the neighborhood. That's not what they've applied for, and this is not an appropriate way to bypass that process, despite the fact that it may be a good idea in the long run, and that it may be necessary in the long run for the town's purposes. This is not the right way to go about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Joe?
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I can't help but comment, and I look around and I know some of you, that this would be an entirely different, there were two Gilbertson brothers. One of them is deceased. The deceased Gilbertson brother, if he was here, it would be quite a night. But in any event, his property apparently has been sold.
Fortunately.
Yeah, I think that's probably correct. Mr. Chairman, I don't think we can act until we, as you know, have counsel assigned to us by the town available, not town council. We have separate counsel for the planning board. And I would not be comfortable making any decision until I had our counsel look at this letter that this gentleman just was speaking about.
Yes, Jim.
I agree 100% with Joe, that I do not feel comfortable voting on this matter until this matter has been reviewed by our council to give us some advice as to how we should proceed. But I do have one question for Mr. Clark. And Chris says, why are you going for a waiver rather than going for a site plan review?
It just really, from a timing perspective, I think we were trying to be able to do something on the site this summer.
Okay, Chris, the parking issue in Harwich Port has been well known for a few years. We did a parking study. The parking study, created the license with TD Bank. I think we all knew at that time that while that helped, that didn't solve the problem. When the building that is now under construction was approved, we all knew that that was going to cause some additional issues and that we would have a parking problem. Why are we sitting here the last week in June trying to rush through an issue just before we have the largest crush in parking, when we've had this issue on our plate for a few years? And you don't need to respond to that, Chris, but that's a real serious concern that I have. Yeah. And I agree with Joe 100%. I think that we need legal advice as to whether we can proceed with the waiver. My advice to the town would be to withdraw the waiver proposal and submit a site plan review proposal, which we would certainly be happy to act on as quickly as possible. That would be my recommendation.
Just to the point, I don't want people to think that, we're being irresponsible. I think that there was an expectation by administration that the private work would be done in a more timely fashion, and I think because that construction has been delayed, it has created a little bit more pressure this summer than we had anticipated. Okay. So it was a little bit more acute than what we had originally thought.
Chief.
Just a couple of comments. First, better late than never. Second, if we're going to go by 2002 standards, in all due respect to the attorney, we'd have a lot less smoke detectors, a lot less sprinkler systems, and no carbon monoxide detectors. Things change, and change for the better.
We'd have a different president, too.
Could be, yes, we would.
In 2002.
My concern is actually, I'm here as an advocate for the people on Pleasant Street.
Okay.
I want to move that traffic off Pleasant Street. I want to move that traffic off of Cross Street. I want to get that traffic off of Mile Street. And we might have to swallow a little bit of a bitter pill to make the town parking lot bigger. We have an access problem down there. Yeah. We are a victim of our own success, once again. I would rather, it just does not make sense to me to have those folks on Pleasant Street with those beautiful homes have to deal with the excessive parking on our successful, for instance, music in the port nights. I think it just makes more sense to try and move that traffic off those residential streets and put them in a parking lot, but do it in a respectful way. I feel for the people on Pleasant Street and Cross Street. We need to help those folks, but the only way we can really do that in a reasonable way is make the parking lot bigger. We are gonna have, well, I'll tell you, we're gonna get through. And our insurance rates are gonna go up, because we're gonna get through, and it's a problem. On those nights, the police chief does a tremendous job helping us out and keeping those streets as clear as he can, but he can't do it all. We need to move that parking off those residential streets and get it in a parking lot.
Okay.
I just want to respond to Jim's question, just to be clear. We were in conversation with a gentleman downtown who owns several pieces of property down the spur, in terms of trying to figure out what we could do and what we could do, work collectively with him to try to figure something out. So those conversations we were having. Unfortunately, the timing was not appropriate in the ability to get it before a town meeting, to figure out any kind of funding, if it was a short-term lease or anything like that. So we were thinking about it. The problem is that there's such limited options. Yeah. And, you know, to the chief's point and the safety, we're also, as the board, looking to help both parties, in the sense that we're looking to help our residents and we're looking to help our businesses. And it is great. We're growing. We've got so much activity downtown. We're seeing great development, and we're lucky for all of those things. But with all of that comes additional issues. So we are, you know, suffering for our success, but at the same time, we need to be proactive. And I understand the various issues that are brought up legally. I understand all of those. You know, unfortunately, it becomes a safety issue if we can't do something to try to alleviate it, at least temporarily, throughout the summer. That's our problem. 2 months out of the year are our biggest parking problem. So I guess if there's nothing that can be done tonight, the question goes back to how quickly can we do something on a temporary basis even to alleviate.
Madam Chairman, would you just identify yourself for
Oh,
the
sorry,
record?
Julie Kavanaugh,
Sorry.
Board of Selectmen Chairman. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to weigh in for the third attorney on the board. Mary?
My whole concern is, I think, I have to agree with my brothers, we can't legally waive some of those earlier conditions. And unfortunately, if you had come forward with a site plan review application, we could have addressed that tonight as opposed to having to wait. So unfortunately, that, I think wires just got crossed somewhere. And because I personally am excited to see more parking, I think we need it. That's the whole point of the port being so successful. It's horrible trying to go on a Wednesday night and not being able to get parking, and nobody wants to drive down Pleasant Street. I don't want to drive down Pleasant Street to even get around. It would be much nicer if there was more parking, and the businesses need it. We've had the issue in the port. We've had the issue with the businesses at Saugatuck Harbor, dealing with, there's still never enough municipal parking. So any place we can get it is great. It's just don't think we can legally do anything about the conditions that are already in existence, and they're there, and we can't address it in a waiver.
Jim, I'm going to go to this Jim first.
Yeah, sure. So my question is, have we ever looked into remote parking, like at town hall, or not town hall, but the recreation center, places like that, the school?
So we
and,
were.
And then busing people in. So we eliminate cars, we eliminate carbon monoxide, all the.
Right, and actually that, I brought that up the other night at our meeting, is I think that's really our best alternative.
And quick.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
so-
And we have parking lots, and, you know, lots of them that are, you know, not occupied on the weekends, and a shuttle service would be really helpful, so.
For those of us with the gray hair, we had one at one time. We used to have one. They used a school bus, and went around to the outside parking lots and picked people up and brought them to the public beaches in the town.
Yeah, which I think we should look at that. I mean, we just
I
talked about
think
it.
I'm going to recognize you in a minute. I'm not
That's
going to
fine,
make
that
you
was my
wait.
suggestion, was could we consider doing, because I'm at 16 and 18 Pleasant Street, your parking lot is my front yard. And I cannot tell you how horrible, like your poor planning is affecting me. So shuttling, I'm just saying there are other alternatives. I understand that you need parking, but you've got to be like outside of the box thinkers, come up with alternatives, and it's not pave paradise and put up a parking lot. It's just not the answer, all right? You're gonna get more cars, but guess what? Then more people are gonna come, and they're still gonna be on Pleasant Street. So you really need, Elizabeth Lockhart, 16 and 18 Pleasant Street. So all I'm saying is that you've got to put some thought into this and really plan, because you're gonna end up with the exact same situation. We are growing, it's great, but these extra parking spots are not your answer. So other plans would be great. That's all I'm
Okay.
going to suggest.
I just want to echo some of the comments that Mary made, that, I think we're all trying to do the same thing. But I think our concern is that we want to do it the right way so that we're not challenged.
Yeah, to that end, Mr. Chairman, just, to maybe kind of put this in a nutshell, I hear what you're saying. We certainly have good attorneys. I didn't go to law school. So I think we have enough of lawyers to have it covered tonight. So we'll submit it, and we'll go back and file the more formal application.
That
And
would
we
be
will have
helpful.
to try to see if there are any other temporary solutions. But I just, to Julie's point, we have looked, we have had extensive meetings with Mr. Miller to see if there was other alternatives that exist. So we are trying to do public-private. We can certainly look at the more remote sites. In my experience, the further the site, the less desirable for folks. And we're kind of confined to what we own.
Yeah.
But we can certainly look and explore, and some of those things have been explored even 4 years ago when I started. So easy solutions aren't there, or else we would have already used them. But I think it makes sense for us to hear the comments and kind of decide that, let us come back and do our homework and present something that's going to be
And I
more
think,
accessible for the board.
Chris, before we formally vote, there's been 3 or 4 people that have been patiently waiting. If you could do it.
I'm gonna keep it super quick.
Oh, keep it simple,
Super
stupid.
quick. My name's Taylor Powell. I'm owner-operator of Perks Coffee Shop and Beer Garden in Harwich Port.
Good.
I 110% support the parking in the chamber lot. It's our land, their land. Let's use it. It's not being utilized. It's all positives. I understand the neighbors have some issues. They got lawyers here digging in deep with certain laws. I think you guys have the power at bay to vote this through. I also think that if I was a neighbor, would I rather have a bunch of cars in my lawn, or would I rather see them in a parking lot? I'd rather see them in a parking lot than blocking up the whole street. And let's get this thing done. Let's push it through. It's going to help all the businesses. It's going to benefit everybody there. It's going to benefit the neighbors by reducing the risk of putting cars at that entryway. People are going to park at that entryway, and there's going to be an accident or a problem. If we have a parking lot there, it eliminates that risk. It's a positive, okay? That's really it. I think we should do it. I agree with it. I'm sorry if the neighbors disagree with me, but town is growing, and we need to react. We need to be proactive, and we need to push this through and make it happen, because we've got a problem on our hands. This town grew and is bursting at the seams, and unless we do something about it here today, soon, rapidly, we're in big trouble.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Put your name down, okay?
I sure did.
Good.
Have a good
Next.
night. Thanks.
You are?
Doug Carlson, 10 Pleasant Street. My family and I, we're longtime residents of Pleasant Street. My great-grandfather, Jarrett Scott, purchased the property in 1890. And I have photos of what it looked like back then, not to get nostalgic, but there was no paving at all. But I understand that times change. The road has been paved, Pleasant Street has been paved, and incidentally, I'd much rather have cars double parked 4 Wednesdays a summer on Pleasant Street than have that parking lot. Enough is enough. We should focus on preserving the character of our town instead of moving in what I consider to be the opposite direction. Emphasis should be on on ideas of the future, like sidewalks, bike paths, and public transport, not on cars and parking lots. I would urge those in favor of this ill-advised proposal to consider more modern and innovative approaches, such as what the gentleman proposed about a shuttle bus, rather than revert to the unimaginative, old-fashioned, environmentally insensitive solution of cutting down trees and paving a new parking lot. If you hire a parking lot consultant to study the issue, one would expect that the solution offered would be a parking lot. Surprise, surprise. I understand that merchants need parking, but those merchants understood the parking situation when they opened their businesses. Every Wednesday in the summer, I see thousands of visitors who somehow manage to find their way to the music strolls. I would suggest that with this parking lot, you are not solving a problem, you are merely transferring a problem. You are creating a major new problem for the residents of Pleasant Street. What's worse, you force upon us a self-inflicted wound. We must use our considerable tax dollars to do something that decreases the economic and aesthetic value of our own properties. So I would respectfully urge, when it comes before the board, that the members be forward-thinking, exercise restraint, respect the taxpayers of the neighborhood, and respect the invaluable sense of place that we have in our hometown.
Larry, can we have a copy of what he just read?
Okay. Yeah, could you just give a copy of what was read to the person recording it? Miss O'Neill?
Yes.
First, I'd like to thank your brother for getting my wife her green card.
No.
Good luck to her.
She got it.
Wonderful, and
He did it.
and may she be a voting citizen in
She is.
prompt order. Okay. All right, Rosemary O'Neill. I live at the Anchorage, and I want to talk about safety and with the prospect of additional cars coming in Pleasant Street around that corner, Schoolhouse Road, and then trying to park in that looks like, to me, a very tight area, okay? I have been astonished at the rate of speed that cars come in off of Pleasant Street into Schoolhouse, and of cars who, when leaving the parking lot, come in, are going at a high speed. It's not everybody, obviously, but there is enough so that it is a danger. The Anchorage has written to the town talking about this danger and trying to take the precautions necessary. We're very grateful that signs have been put up on one side of Schoolhouse that says no parking. They were parking on both sides of Schoolhouse, and it just, you could be, well, a fire truck couldn't get through, if there was a fire. It was very dangerous. And so we're grateful that those signs went up. Are they always observed? No, they are not, but at least they're up there, and some citizens do comply. I have a question. I know you want to proceed quickly, but things change so fast. Originally, when I heard that the building on 28 was going to be that Ike's or whatever it was, and that whole group of stores was going to be torn down, stores were going to be put up in front, and a parking lot was going to be put in back. How sensible. Have the stores in the front of the street. Well, of course that didn't happen, because the stores need parking for themselves, and then there were apartment residents. So that parking was gone, 40 spaces gone. Then I understood that there would be parking at Saquatucket Harbor at the marina, and that would be public parking. There were questions about safety going along the road from Saquatucket to downtown. How is that going to be addressed? But there has been no efforts to develop a parking lot at Saquatucket. Why do we need a quick fix? What is the long-term picture of this. Perhaps, getting a new idea or plan, that you could put out in the public as to how you're going to address these needs, rather than trying short-term fixes, which will not be short-term, they will be forever. And I do understand that we want this to be an economically healthy environment where our merchants and, attract the best clientele to Harwich Port. That people who come here use our beaches, that they have that opportunity. I understand that. But I really question whether you want to sacrifice one little green space that affords, color and protection, and dare I say birds? I mean, when I first started to come to the Cape in 1972, I used to see bobwhite all over the place. There are no bobwhite anymore. You can't buy them. Well, that small little, I don't know, quarter acre affords birds to be there. I'm speaking selfishly, perhaps, that, it gives me great pleasure to see them come in, but, I'm not going to take any more of your valuable time. I thank you for your patience, and
Thank you for coming to the meeting.
I live in the same condo complex as Rosemary does, so my name's Les Parmalee, 15 Pleasant Street in Harwich Port, the Anchorage condominiums. I'm opposed to this proposed parking space to be created out of the green space. But in addition to that, I wanted to take a moment to express some concern about what was done sometime between October and April in the center lines where we now have parking. This has really created a safety hazard in this parking lot. The exit, I'm going to walk over here so I can show you.
You need to
Yes,
use a
I
microphone.
will. But right here is the exit from the condo back parking lot. We cannot exit like we used to exit, take a left-hand turn out of there toward Pleasant Street. You pull out of there, there's a car immediately on the left, and of course the biggest F-350 parks right on the corner. So now you can't see beyond the F-350, and you're confronted with vehicles parked directly in front of you. And the only way that we can get to Pleasant Street now is to go to the right, swing around the middle spaces to go back to the right toward Pleasant Street. Or we can go to 28, and nobody in their right mind in the summer chooses to go to 28 if you can go to Pleasant Street. So that's a very serious problem. We got no notice of this. I don't know how it happened. The Anchorage condominium, we're in a butter. We got no notice, and it's really created a very serious safety problem. I understand that we need more parking, but shuttling people, all the things that have been said, I would endorse everything except tearing down those trees and creating more asphalt or gravel, as the case may be. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Are you all waiting to talk? If you're going to keep repeating, we don't have to hear it.
I hope I didn't repeat too much. So.
Okay.
Hi, Larry. No, I'm not. Actually, I'm Cindy Williams, the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. We actually, as the Chamber, are an advocate for both the businesses that we have many here of, as well as the neighbors that are on Pleasant Street. When we approached Mr. Clark, we were concerned about that because we see that on a regular basis on the Wednesday nights. We also saw it this spring when we had a very horrific accident that took place there. I'm sorry if I'm going to get a little choked up, but what we're trying to do is positive. We weren't trying to offend anyone. We were trying to actually help. So again, we are sorry if this was too quick, but we were trying to alleviate what was going on in town and try to help out. The perceived parking that people have mentioned, that was where the old Dino's building is, and now a beautiful building that is happening. That was perceived public parking. It was never public parking. So when we did approach the town about an idea. It was to help with that, to help out, and, you know, our town is growing, and we're very proud of that. But again, the chamber and the town were not trying to do anything against anyone or to take anything away from. I enjoy, when I do get a break, to walk down Pleasant Street and see the amazing, beautiful lots that people have well maintained. I also spent some time this weekend when we had our Harwich K Road Race, and some of our volunteers live on that. We have a great relationship with both the Anchorage member residents and Pleasant Street, so we weren't by any means trying to take anything away. What we thought was a quick idea that would help. Didn't mean to offend anyone. So thank you for tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. And the,
One more.
Looks like he has a small
Hi,
piece of paper.
good thing you've got a small piece of paper.
I do. It's getting shorter. My name is Bob Bench, I live on Miles Street. I'm here to keep Pleasant Street pleasant. A number of things have been said that I don't need to repeat, but one simple issue is the town has designated Miles and Pleasant as a bicycle way. And we have bicycles and walkers all day long, 7 days a week, on Miles Pleasant. And you've got a building traffic issue if you expand that parking lot. I mean, just the amount of traffic is already there.
Yeah.
If you expand the number of spaces, you'll expand the number of traffic, cars going in and out. We have a safety issue that needs to be dealt with. I think you have an environmental issue, too. You've got the little forest, you've got the grove. That grove is a buffer, a visual buffer and an audio buffer from what's going on the other side, which is commercial activity. You whack down that grove, you bring all that commercial activity smack into Pleasant Street. And you have people all over Pleasant Street who invested millions of dollars in their homes. And those homes were there before these businesses were there. So why should these people suffer? And these people pay taxes. Do the owners of these businesses pay taxes? Do they live in Harwich? Maybe we should tear down the Chamber of Commerce building. This is space right there. I mean, it's 11 o'clock at night, I know. But you can see a number of people have been here for 3.5 hours.
Excuse me.
Serious stuff. We think some completely different thinking needs to happen. And you need to connect the dots between what you're permitting to have done on the commercial side and the residential taxpayers on the other side. Thank you.
You've been up once, haven't you?
No, I'll be very short.
No, you've been up once. You don't go ahead and come twice. Have you been up once for this?
Not on this, no.
Okay, go right ahead.
Pardon me? What did you say?
No, well, I'm being pleasant.
You know, I guess, well, so am I. You know, I guess what I wanted to say is I realize, you know, I've been in business there for 44 years, and I consider myself to be a very fortunate person, and I am a taxpayer. But, I mean, this is, you know, listening to all of, you know, what you people have to say, it's sort of like, you know, maybe it's not a good idea. You know, I mean, you know, we definitely need parking in the community. We know that it's an issue, but, you know, as Cindy said, you know, I mean, our intention certainly wasn't, you know, rely on a lot of you people, and our intention wasn't to insult. You know, we're sort of looking, all of us, you know, we all have different opinions. We're, you know, I'm looking out for the interests of my business, you're looking out for the interests of your homes, and that's understandable, you know? And hopefully, you know, we can arrive at some kind of solution. I mean, we talked about, and the best is, the woman from the selectmen said, you know, we talked back in October with Dennis Miller and that property, the old Delia property. It's the best solution in the world. You could have gotten that, you could have had a nice park out front, and then you could have parking, you could have had 100 parking spaces in the back. That is what has to be pursued. That is, it's gonna be there. It's there, but you do need parking. So fine, let's make a compromise. Put a park in the front of that place and put parking in the back on the old Delear property. That would be a solution right there. That would definitely wouldn't be offensive to anyone. There wouldn't be anyone around that would want to be complaining about that. And that's something that Dennis Miller and I talked about actually back in October of last year, and no one got back to Dennis until the last week of March. There was no communication whatsoever. So that's it. You know, once again, you know, we're a small community, and you know, we don't want to create any feelings of animosity in anyone's park. You know, I feel very strongly, certainly about parking back there, but I also feel, you know, more strongly about, you know, community spirit. So it's something that we all have to, you know, you've got to think about us too. You know, we'll think about you, and you know, it's important. But I think we can probably, you know, all work together and you know, and find some kind of solution that we all sort of can work with, you know?
I guess I'll restate that on behalf of town and town administration. At this point, I would like to withdraw the application with the intent that we will be back with something that, you know, we will certainly take into account the comments made. And just, Mr. Chairman, if I could, you know, I know some comments have been made that we have looked at alternatives. We are building the Saquatucket extension area that this board approved, the former Downey property. We do have a request into the state DOT to connect the sidewalk from Saquatucket to Harwich Port. So we are thinking outside of the box. This isn't a one-trick pony. We are looking at various things, so we will continue to look and take these comments into account.
Okay, thank you very much. So, for anybody that's, Dr. Gravity? For anybody that hasn't been able to hear, we're withdrawing the application and it's going to be resubmitted as a site plan review, a full site plan review. So it's all being looked at, and I thank everyone. Huh?
You need to
He didn't
vote on
say
that.
that. He didn't say they're going to resubmit it as a full site plan, but he's going to reconsider. That's what I heard you say.
Well,
He's going to
I'll
reconsider the
restate.
comments and come back with a, he
I
did
thought
say
I said
that.
I would
You
withdraw
did.
the request for a
Waiver of
waiver,
site plan, right.
and that we would come back with a site plan
Yeah.
for
Yes.
consideration.
That's what I heard.
That's what I heard too.
If my term of art was wrong, I apologize, but that was the intent.
You did.
Okay.
But the board also needs to vote on the request for the withdrawal.
I'd like to make a comment, and I may be getting too far out on the limb. I spent my working life in Washington, D.C. From 1968, when I moved there, to 2008, when I moved here in Florida. I witnessed them building parking garage after parking garage, widening streets, widening 95 into and out of, and it did not relieve the parking problem one bit. The number of cars increased exponentially. Every time we built a new space, there were 3 cars to fill it. We need to find other solutions rather than just simply taking the space, every available square foot of space in Harwich Port, and turning it into a parking lot. You've heard the term NIMBY.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's another side to that. You need to think, when you propose something, whether or not you would like what you're proposing for somebody else's front yard or backyard, if you would like it in yours. And if the answer is no, you really need to come up with other solutions. I applaud the lady that suggested busing from the community center or the high school downtown on especially the nights of music in the port. We need to think of more creative solutions like that, rather than just, you know, having 3 wolves and a goat voting on what to have for dinner.
I like it.
David, I like that.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we accept the applicant's request to withdraw the request for a waiver of site plan review.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Just a note, we got out earlier out of our meeting.
You did.
Good for you. Good for you. By the way,
Thank you.
thanks for making my last meeting memorable.
I just want to talk to him about something.
It was all for you, Larry.
We still have items on the agenda. Charlotte?
I didn't understand what you were saying about the vote here, when you
voted.
I already have
those two opposed it?
I have that.
Excuse me, everybody, we still have more business to conduct, so if you want to have discussions, if you please do it out of the hallway,
Okay.
then we can continue the meeting.
The next item on the agenda
Remote participation?
Yeah.
is item D, PB 2018-13 Eastwood Homes Business Trust, Planning Board signatures and agreement of covenant, Bascom Hollow definitive plan.
20-day appeal period.
Anybody waited this long?
20-day appeal period has expired. There were no appeals taken. The Mylar has been signed by the town clerk indicating so. So I told the applicant, you don't need to be here tonight, anticipating a long meeting. So on their behalf, I request that you vote to endorse the Mylar and the covenant.
And you have them?
Yes, I do.
Do I hear a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we endorse both the Mylar and the covenant with regard to Eastwood Homes Business Trust.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Mr. Chairman, we should recognize the fact that a former chairman of this board
He
has
has
sat here all night.
I might add that he passed the baton to me a long time ago,
Yeah,
if I can
that's
remember.
right, the first time, yeah.
And he's taking his wife on a cruise.
Actually, there's two former chairmen here.
Until about Chairman 7.
Yes.
You need to sign.
Do with my pen. You steal my
An
pen.
advisory opinion,
Oh, Matt.
while we're signing,
Can I
any
use one of
any
this?
questions on the advisory opinion?
I looked at them, Mr. Chairman, I don't see anything that
Okay, that's
affects us.
fine to me. And the minutes for April 10th and May 10th, 2018.
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
I abstain on the one I didn't attend.
Okay, and I'm not getting any of this down because I can't be doing two things at once.
We can.
Okay, we need to put this in.
David.
record.
Missed all
David
the
abstained.
motions.
Okay, Joe made it, I seconded.
I still can't.
I abstained on May 10th. I voted approval
I'll
on
fill in
April
David's
6th.
Endorsement, thank you, that was my question.
Or April 10th, I'm sorry. So,
Don't bother.
It just makes it easier to pass.
Oh, I just saw who was in the back there, look at him.
hi, Peter.
Hey, Peter?
Do you have the pen?
Can I sign in blue on the paper?
Paper doesn't matter, those are for the records.
You know,
Just making sure.
Any color, it could be green, it could be purple.
Charlene, does any black pen do, or does it have to be that one?
Can I do this one?
On the Mylar, it needs to be that special.
I want to do it in Indian ring.
Right on that speaker there,
Push the
Larry.
button.
I still have my rapidograph. I think they're all kind of icky now.
Is this, no one ever said it here.
We've been here so long, I forgot my
I think
name.
everybody signed it.
How's your handwriting tonight, Joe?
Better.
So the April 10th meeting minutes, who voted, motioned?
Joe
We
moved.
voted both of them. Joe motioned, I seconded. And on which one, David, did you
David
abstain?
abstained on the 10th of May. And Joe moved. Alan seconded. All the votes were unanimous with the
No,
exception.
No, Jim seconded.
Alan's not even here.
It's a kind of night it's been.
Larry.
10 o'clock.
Before we adjourn,
Yes.
can we say
The company time.
congratulations on your last meeting?
Oh, he's got it.
You know, the funny thing, Charlene, when we took the break, both of the batteries in my hearing aids went out.
Oh, jeez.
Thank God David had some. That goes in there too. Don't need any of this.
That's
Sorry.
That's all right. Mine ran out of ink on it.
No.
We adjourned, didn't
No.
we? No, no. Want me to do that?
Well, we have one more item on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
We fill out the report.
Yes, we do. Okay, the next item, have you got that, Charlene?
Yep.
Okay, the next item on the agenda would be old business. Any old business?
Got old members, but not old business.
Much older now. Any briefings and reports? Hearing none?
I would like to move that this meeting be adjourned.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Discussion.
Aye.
Discussion.
Carried.
No, I think something needs to be said about Larry's long time serving on
I
this board.
tried that a moment ago and everyone
I
ignored
know.
me.
And, you know, I, as the planner, am definitely gonna miss him. I had the pleasure of working with him when I was here previously as a planner, and now again, and I will miss his guidance.
Guidance.
We're going to invite him back to a meeting, and we have a little something that we'll take care of at that time.
Absolutely.
I mean, just come in and say hello. You don't have to
Yeah.
spend the whole night.
Take a long meeting.
Unless you want to.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And now you know why you got off.
I gotta tell you, this is a record performance too.
It is, yeah.